Chapter 2460. Low-class giant beasts, no survival crystals. Middle-class giant beasts, 1%. High-class giant beasts, 5%. Hunting the ferocious beasts in the survival zone is meaningless. Although these ferocious beasts are ordinary and easy to kill, it is too time-consuming. Even if it is a brutal ferocious beast with a 20% chance of survival, it is meaningless. Killing 5 brutal giant beasts only gave him 1 survival crystal. It was a waste of time. In the survival zone, ferocious beasts could be found everywhere. However, most of them were normal ferocious beasts, low-tier, mid-tier, and high-tier. Ferocious beasts were almost equivalent to chieftains. There were still quite a few of them, but Lord-tier ferocious beasts were much rarer. Usually, only 1 giant beast lord would appear in a large area. With my current strength, I can easily kill a giant beast lord. I can even fight the giant beast king. The best place to get survival crystals is the king domain. Lin Feng's thoughts were clear. It was difficult to find the king domain. After all, there were only 108 of them. However, there were 10,800 king domains. Although the survival zone was large, it should not be a problem to find one of them. In a king domain, there would be many giant beast king and its subordinate. The weakest would be the brutal giant beasts, but there were also many giant beast lords. It was much more efficient to get survival crystals in the king domain than outside. That was because the number of survival crystals he needed was too large. Finding one of them is equivalent to finding a treasure vault. Even if I can't get the maximum 60 survival crystals, it's easy to get half. Let's look around and feel the atmosphere of the survival zone. The king domain was large, but the king domain was even larger. Both domains contained rich treasures. Although these treasures might not be of much use to the venerables, they were very useful to the current peak almighty geniuses. Not to mention, among these treasures, there were treasures buried by Huang Zun and the ultimate god. Even the venerables coveted them. To find the treasures, luck and strength were indispensable. The survival zone was huge. Therefore, even though more than 10 million cultivators had entered, it was still not easy to encounter them. Especially in the beginning, when the top AI separated the cultivators completely. With a clear target, Lin Feng's actions were naturally decisive. Although the king's domain didn't have any special characteristics, it was evenly distributed throughout the entire survival zone, so it was very easy to find it. With the current location as the center point, all he had to do was circle the area. Using the size of a king's domain as the inner diameter of the ring, it saves the most time and is also the most reliable method. There are 10,800 king's domains. As long as I have enough time, it won't be a problem to find one. Lin Feng instantly sped away, his aura not spreading out much, and it was too difficult to sense the king's domain and the giant beasts. In the survival zone, the naked eye was more reliable than aura. Hidden Exalt Luo Jing is quite useful. There was no need for him to calculate his position. Every time he circled around, the map on the Qian Exalt Luo crystal would open up a layer. Although it was just a rough mark, it was already very effective. His position in the survival domain was also clear at a glance. However, the survival zone is really huge. Lin Feng had been traveling for dozens of days, and he found that what he had explored was only the tip of the iceberg. Every time he circled around, the distance would increase. In less than an hour, every time he circled around, the distance would exceed dozens of days, and it was still increasing. And this was after he calculated the distance and the inner diameter of the king's domain. Otherwise, the efficiency would be even lower. If I'm lucky, I'll find it immediately. If I'm unlucky, it might take 3 to 7 years, or even 10 years. Lin Feng looked at the Qian Exalt Luo Jing, and his heart trembled. From the map on the Qian Exalt Luo Jing, he could roughly estimate the size of the survival zone. Luckily, the king's domain was evenly distributed in every region. Otherwise, if he was unlucky, he wouldn't be able to find it even after 100 years. A transparent beam of light emerged from Lin Feng's body, faintly showing the image of an ingot. From time to time, invisible energies pierced through the space around Lin Feng, making sizzling noises that sent chills down one's spine. This was a set of rare top-grade Heavenly Tao Supreme treasures that combined the power of light and space. Dusk Thorn Ingot. This was one of the 5 top-tier Heavenly Law treasures that Lin Feng had. It was a domain-type Heavenly Law treasure that could both attack and defend. Compared to ordinary domain-type true treasures, the Duskthorn Ingot had the light-type Twilight domain, the space-type Bone-piercing domain, and the strongest one was the Twilight Assassination domain, which was a fusion of light and space. Among domain-type, top-notch, Heavenly Axiom Absolute treasures, it could be considered one of the best. In the Treasure Analysis Center, Lin Feng had already grasped the first 2 forms, including the most difficult one, the Twilight Assassination domain. Now, he was releasing the second form, the Piercing Bone domain. The first and second forms didn't have much of a difference in strength. The difference was that the first form focused on defense, while the Piercing Bone domain focused on attack. One used light energy while the other used space energy. Although the Twilight domain was better for defense and warning, the Piercing Bone domain used space energy. For Lin Feng, who had the Black Whirlpool, it was 0 energy consumption, even if it was a top-tier Heavenly Law treasure that used up a lot of space energy. Therefore, Lin Feng was now releasing the Piercing Bone domain. Although it focused on attack, no matter which form it was, the basic domain effect was there. As long as any danger approached, the domain would sense it, which was very important in the survival zone. Not only did he have to guard against the giant beasts, but he also had to guard against the cultivators of the God-slaying training camp and the hidden saint training camp. Here, he couldn't just rely on his aura and eyes. Every cultivator was like the 8 immortals crossing the sea, showing off their abilities. Especially those old people of the training camp, they were very experienced and had already prepared all kinds of sharp weapons for the survival zone. Better to be careful. Rumble, the earth shook violently. Lin Feng suddenly stopped. He didn't sense the aura, but his intuition had already reacted. This situation obviously came from a powerful giant beast. Shua. Lin Feng's body suddenly turned, and the Piercing Bone domain almost instantly transformed into the first form, the Twilight domain. Rays of twilight radiance blossomed from the Twilight Thorn Ingot, and the sky seemed to have darkened. Thick rays of light condensed, and with the Twilight Thorn Ingot as the center, lines of light appeared densely, covering the entire area. The domain effect appeared instantly. In addition to protection, it also had the ability to sense and restrain. 4 cultivators, domain-type true treasures were second only to weapons and armors. It's here. Lin Feng looked into the distance, not panicking, but rather excited. This was his first battle after coming to the survival zone. Chapter 2461. It's a brutal behemoth. Lin Feng chuckled. The brutal behemoths were divided into ordinary brutal behemoths, lord-level brutal behemoths, lord-level brutal behemoths, and beast king behemoth. Normally, one would only encounter these 4 types in the king and emperor domains, but more than 90% of them were ordinary brutal behemoths. The chances of encountering a brutal behemoth were less than 10%. But he had encountered one in his first battle. With a 20% chance of obtaining survival crystals, the brutal giant ferocious beast's aura was comparable to that of a peak divine master. Of course, their combat power was not much different. Every giant ferocious beast that was born in the 7th God world had an innate chaotic body. Although it was not as good as Lin Feng's perfect chaotic body, it could still become a Vajra Lord. Of course, the universe had given the ferocious beasts such a monstrous talent, but it would naturally deprive them of other parts. The ferocious beasts had yet to develop their intelligence, and they only knew how to kill, kill, and kill again. It was rare for a ferocious beast to break through and become a legendary ferocious beast emperor. Boom! The brutal behemoth threw a punch. The air seemed to have stopped flowing. The brutal behemoth's terrifying use of chaotic force had reached the small success level. However, the brutal behemoth's attack was weakened by layers of twilight light. Bang! Lin Feng directly waved his saber, and the mega avalanche fell. It was the same small success chaotic heavenly way, but it was mixed with the heavenly way of the subtle realm. It completely defeated the brutal giant beast. Endless avalanches collapsed, instantly burying this brutal giant beast that was like a giant mountain. No matter how strong it was, it could not be used. Whoosh! Lin Feng's blade cut through the air and beheaded the brutal behemoth without any effort. To the current Lin Feng, an opponent at the peak of the Divine Master limit was nothing. He could already defeat it in terms of combat power. Not to mention that he had all kinds of heavenly treasures, his perfect chaotic body, and his bloodline. Even if he did not use the blade technique Aurora, he had the absolute combat power of a peak Divine Master. Oh! Lin Feng was slightly surprised. A diamond-like polygonal object appeared in the void. It emitted boundless radiance, and had a total of 108 facets. It was extremely beautiful and exuded an aura that made one's heart flutter. 20% chance of getting a life crystal? Lin Feng laughed. At this moment, his luck had reversed. But Lin Feng kept the hidden revered Luo crystals, but didn't exchange them for hidden revered point. It didn't make a difference whether he exchanged them earlier or later. In the survival domain, survival crystals weren't allowed to be fought over. One life crystal meant that he could end the test of the survival zone early. This also meant that he could exchange for 100 hidden revered points. Lin Feng didn't really care about the life crystals that other cultivators could only dream of. As long as he could find the king's domain and kill enough ferocious beasts and ferocious beast overlords, he would be able to obtain a large amount of them. I'd rather use this luck to search for a king's domain. Lin Feng's saber was as fast as lightning. He quickly cut open the body of the giant ferocious beast and took out a small crystal ball the size of a fingernail. So this is the ferocious beast original core. Lin Feng could feel the violent and tyrannical aura contained within it. It was extremely condensed and compressed into a small ball. It was hard to imagine that such a giant ferocious beast's ferocious beast original core would be so small. The higher the strength, the bigger the ferocious beast original core. This is because it contains more energy and laws. This ferocious beast original core isn't very useful to me. It can only be used to replenish energy. The ferocious beast original core was basically made up of heaven and earth energy. It could quickly replenish the energy consumed in the body. However, this wasn't the main function of the ferocious beast original core. The most important function of the ferocious beast original core was that it contained the innate ability of the universe. As long as one refined it, they would be able to comprehend the corresponding universe heavenly path secret technique. However, comprehending it was one thing. Whether or not he could master it was another matter. The ferocious beast original core he just killed contained the universe heavenly path secret technique. It wasn't his specialty. Just like the life crystal, the ferocious beast original core couldn't be stolen. Of course, it could be given as a gift. Normally, many cultivators would form small teams and take the ferocious beast original cores they needed. Schwa. After storing the ferocious beast original core into the hidden sovereign Luo crystal, Lin Feng continued to explore the survival domain. Encountering a ferocious beast was something that would happen sooner or later, so he didn't care too much about it. He also didn't go to the hunting domain to gain more information on ferocious beasts like other cultivators. This was because strength was the fundamental deciding factor. If one was strong enough, like Trout Dragon and Taigan Decidua from the Deicide training camp, they could even kill the most terrifying ferocious beast emperor. If one wasn't strong enough, even if one had all the information on ferocious beasts, they would still lose. The blue lake stretched as far as the eye could see. The edge of the lake flashed with silver light, like a layer of sparkling pearls covering the ground. At first glance, it was easy to have the illusion that there were treasures in the lake. In fact, the lake itself was a king's domain. 330 survival points. At the center of the lake, a man wearing blue armor and a mask perfectly blended in with the lake water. His eyes were sunken deep into his eye sockets, and his gray pupils flashed. Deicide Training Camp, Huichong, ranked 45488 on the ranking. Possessing the bloodline of the Monster Clan and the Water Clan, Huichong was able to unleash an extremely strong combat power in the water, even stronger than on land. Therefore, even though his ranking was not high, he was able to kill the top 10,000 powerhouses of the Hidden Elder Training Camp. In the water, Huichong's strength was definitely above the peak God Lord level. Coming from the Deicide Training Camp, he was also at the peak God Lord level. In the Hidden Sovereign Training Camp, only the top 10,000 experts were at the peak God Lord level, but in the Deicide Training Camp, the top 50,000 experts were all at the peak God Lord level. This was the difference. The Deicide Training Camp had few cultivators, but they were all elite. I don't know when a big fish will come. Huichong was very smart. He knew that he didn't have any advantage on land, so he chose to fight in the water. Whether it was the humans or the demons, their fighting power would be greatly reduced in the water. Waiting for the rabbit by a tree stump could prevent unnecessary battles and accidents to the greatest extent. Moreover, in the lake, he could freely choose his opponent. The glittering fine sand around him was one of his peak Heavenly Way supreme treasures, the Thousand Sand. The energy released by the peak Heavenly Way supreme treasures combined with the uniqueness of the lake itself. With a little arrangement, it was like a natural domain, forming a perfect trap. To be able to rank in the top 50,000 of the Deicide Training Camp, Huichong was definitely not an ordinary person. Swoosh! Huichong, who had his eyes closed, suddenly brightened up. Another fish has taken the bait. Huichong sneered. Instantly, his figure turned into a wave and disappeared. Chapter 2462. This lake doesn't seem to be anything special. There shouldn't be a king's domain here. So, the strange energy waves outside should be from the Heavenly Law treasure. This is a trap. Entering the center of the lake, Lin Feng looked calm. With his observation and perception ability, he naturally discovered that this lake was different. The silver light that flickered at the edge of the lake was like a layer of sparkling pearls. Every single pearl of light contained a unique and powerful aura. They seemed to be separated, but they also seemed to form a whole. There were two possibilities. First, the entire lake was a whole, and these beads were part of it. If so, the possibility of the lake itself being a king's domain was very high. After all, treasures wouldn't exist for no reason. All the treasures in the survival zone were either in the king's domain or the king's domain. Second, these beads were Heavenly Law treasures, so they had a powerful aura. However, this was not the treasure domain. It was impossible for a Heavenly Law treasure to exist alone. Unless someone deliberately used them as bait to disguise the lake and mislead the cultivators. The chances were 50-50. Actually, Lin Feng didn't care about the chances. Even if there was only a 10% chance that this lake was a king's domain, he would still go in and take a look. After all, opportunities were hard to come by. If it really was a king's domain, wouldn't it be a pity to miss it? Moreover, Lin Feng had absolute confidence in his strength, so he had nothing to fear. With such a powerful trump card, there were very few people in the two training camps who could defeat him in a one-on-one battle. Even if it was a trap, so what? Chi! 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 The water in the lake suddenly surged, rapidly rotating and fluctuating. Rays of sparkling and translucent light came from all directions, causing the entire lake to become sparkling and translucent, as if countless crystals were emitting light. A peak realm heavenly law treasure. Lin Feng felt a heavy pressure. His twilight domain was completely suppressed. This was a direct suppression of the domain power. Every bead of light was as heavy as 1,000 pounds. They smashed the twilight domain into pieces, leaving a vacuum in its defense. Whoosh! The light of the twilight domain instantly turned transparent. Beams of bone-piercing energy penetrated the space and appeared on the surface of his body. They were like electric snakes, tearing apart the lake water and the beads of light. The second form, bone-piercing domain. Since he couldn't defend his domain, then he wouldn't defend himself. The bone-piercing energy erupted with powerful offensive power, completely ignoring the pressure from the domain type heavenly axiom supreme treasure. Because there were too many of them, and they were completely amorphous, there was no way to suppress them. Most importantly, Lin Feng possessed boundless spatial energy. Clang! The War Saber Emperor's concealment's third seal was opened, and Lin Feng's strength suddenly increased dramatically. He closed his eyes, and his sense of aura became more organized and clear. In the water, and under the suppression of his opponent's domain-type true treasure, what he could see with his naked eye was completely useless. The water flow was unpredictable, and the powerful domain energy covered every inch of the area. Lin Feng was like a lone sail in the sea, on the verge of collapse. I haven't seen him in the information. He's just a newbie. Hui Chang's eyes were like torches. Inside the Thousand Sand domain, his form was constantly changing along with the water flow. Although he could have attacked earlier, he didn't. Occupying the home ground advantage, Hui Chong was even more cautious. If he encountered a super strong person like Pu Kiki from the opponent's training camp, wouldn't he be an idiot if he still attacked? He had information on all the experts in the hidden revered training camp. Only the newbies didn't have it, and they didn't need it. Normally, there would be a lot of newbies, and there would be a mix of good and bad people. The strongest ones weren't a threat, and they wouldn't waste time and energy on them. I thought it was a big fish, but it turned out to be a small shrimp. Hui Chang's gray eyes were filled with disappointment. His hands quickly changed, and the Thousand Sand domain turned into bright pearls and jades, smashing heavily at Lin Feng, who was already in the fishing net. Boom! 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 The terrifying attack showed the tyrannical power of a peak heavenly law true treasure. Not only did it have a strong domain control ability, but it also had the destructive power of a peak offensive heavenly law true treasure. Hui Chong didn't need to show himself to kill his opponent. The previous two cultivators were the same. But this time, what? Hui Chang's face suddenly changed. The human youth who was originally in the Thousand Sand domain suddenly changed, and an extreme white light suddenly shot straight at him, as if it knew where he was. Fast. The blade light condensed, hiding a shocking heavenly law of mixed strength. It was wrapped in an extreme white light, and the domain couldn't suppress it at all. It was the heavenly law of fine will, and the power condensed into a bundle, breaking the Thousand Sand domain's attack. Chi. Chi. The blade light was indestructible. Only when the Thousand Sand domain was perfectly condensed could it be comparable to a peak offensive heavenly law true treasure. The scattered Thousand Sand domain was nothing to be afraid of. Boom! The lake shook and the water collapsed. Swoosh! Hui Chang's face changed greatly. The blade light that condensed the white light was as fast as lightning, and it pierced a big hole in the domain. The human youth's figure appeared in front of him almost instantly. Oh no! Born in the deicide training camp, Hui Chong was used to seeing big scenes. His countless experiences of surviving death told him that the newcomer in front of him was quite terrifying, and his strength was almost on par with the super newcomers of this era. Tooth Crow. Bang! Boom! Boom! Hui Chang's first reaction was to attack directly. The water waves mixed with space energy made his body seem to escape into the lake while he attacked, and even the space changed. Hui Chong looked like he was attacking, but in fact, he was escaping. There were many opportunities to obtain survival points, and the survival domain was definitely not a place to show off. When there was danger, he had to escape. However, at this moment, an arc-shaped aurora drew a perfect arc from his side, and it looked like a crescent moon in the water. It dodged his attack and landed exactly where he was. Although the speed of the blade light was not as fast as the first light, its power was not inferior, and it might even be stronger. Moreover, it was very accurate. No! Hui Chang's face changed greatly, and he was extremely shocked. He did not expect the opponent's attack to be so fast and fierce, and it was completely out of the ordinary. This kind of attack was not only difficult to attack, but also completely defenseless. This was a completely indiscriminate fighting style. Chi! Chi! The blade light pierced through Hui Chang's body and tore him into pieces. Suddenly, a white light and a beautiful crystal-like puppet appeared in the lake, and it was blasted into countless pieces by the attack. It was the Death Immortal puppet. Boom! Hui Chang's attack also hit Lin Feng, but it was weakened by half by the Death Barbarian armor. The attack was originally just an illusion, and it was not even 30% of Hui Chang's full strength. Naturally, it could not hurt Lin Feng too much. However, Lin Feng's attack just now was real, and its power was shocking. The newly created Aurora Blade skill had just shown its brilliance. Aurora Crescent Moon. Chapter 2463. Aurora's first move, Aurora. Absolute Speed. The ray-shaped aurora was extremely condensed, and its speed was astonishing. Lin Feng had used this move to break through Hui Chang's Wan Zixia domain. Even though Wan Zixia's attack range was wide, it was destined to be lacking in one-sided attack. The biggest use of the bone-piercing domain wasn't to block Wan Zixia's attack, nor was it to attack Hui Chang. Instead, it was to lock onto Hui Chang's position the moment he attacked. Then, with Aurora Absolute Speed, it directly broke through Hui Chang's defense. The first move broke the domain, and the second move killed the opponent. The second move of the Aurora Saber art, Aurora Crescent, was the same as the saber itself. It was an arc-shaped saber light, and its power and attacking method were difficult to block. It was even better than Aurora Absolute Speed. The God Slayer training camp's cultivators are indeed cunning. Lin Feng clearly knew that if he didn't use Aurora Crescent Moon, his opponent would have escaped. He was too good at fighting in the water. He was as cautious as a fish in water, slipping away at the slightest sign of danger. 420 points. Lin Feng looked at his survival points, which went from 0 to 420, and smiled with satisfaction. 100 survival points was enough to complete the test of the survival domain, so 420 points was equivalent to 420 Qian Zun points, which was not bad. However, 1 point could only be exchanged for 1 Qian Zun point, so only the first 1,000 Qian Zun points could be exchanged. The points needed to exchange later would be higher and higher. Hui Chang, 45488 in the God Slayer training camp. His initial survival points were 510. He had obtained 330 survival points from killing 2 Qian Zun training camp's cultivators, which added up to 840 points. Lin Feng had obtained half of that, so he had 420 points. After killing Hui Chang, Lin Feng didn't stay in the lake. Since this wasn't the king's domain, there was no need to waste time. Even if there were giant beasts in the lake, a single one of them wasn't attractive to him. What he needed now was to find the king's domain. As for Hui Chang's treasures, according to the rules of the survival domain, they were the same as the survival crystals and survival points, unable to be obtained. After all, the two training camps were competing with each other, not plundering. They were fundamentally different. After the initial adaptation period, fierce battles had started in the survival domain. The battle between Lin Feng and Hui Chang was just the tip of the iceberg. More than 10 million warriors were trying their best to survive. This was an ability that every cultivator should have. Those who possessed the death immortal puppet would naturally be able to preserve their lives. Those who did not possess the death immortal puppet would truly die once they died. The strong preyed on the weak, and the strong were respected. This was the law of the universe. Even if he didn't die in the hands of other cultivators today, he would die in the secret region of the universe someday. The universe is never merciful. Chi. The saber light streaked across the body of a ferocious beast. Lin Feng took out the ferocious beast origin core and threw it into the hidden Exalt Luo crystal. Although this ferocious beast origin core was of the dark element, he didn't plan on refining it yet. Every minute and second in the survival realm was crucial, just like training in the combat realm. The third savage behemoth. Lin Feng's luck wasn't that good. Normally, a single cultivator wouldn't have a high chance of encountering a ferocious beast, but he had encountered 3 in such a short period of time. Of the 3, only the first ferocious beast had a survival crystal, the other 2 didn't. This was a perfect 20% chance. As for the normal ferocious behemoths, Lin Feng had killed more than 10 of them. The number of ferocious behemoths is more than what the data says. Lin Feng rushed through a mountain range, his figure flickering. The ferocious behemoths in the survival domain didn't originally exist. They were caught by the knights every era and thrown into the survival domain. So, the number of ferocious behemoths in the survival domain was fixed. At the start, there would naturally be a lot of them, but as time passed and more ferocious behemoths were killed, the number of ferocious behemoths in the survival domain would decrease. So, some cultivators who wanted to survive would cleverly hide at the start, not wanting to encounter ferocious behemoth. For example, Hui Chong, who Lin Feng had just killed, was one of them. After all, the threat of ferocious behemoths was uncontrollable. Not every cultivator could easily kill a ferocious beast, or an even stronger ferocious beast overlord. In the survival domain, there was even a ferocious beast king that roamed around. That was the fighting strength of a knight. It was even stronger than the current Lin Feng. In the 2 great training camps, there weren't many people who could kill a ferocious beast king. In the southeast of the survival domain, there was a broken ancient city. The stone pillars were engraved with layers upon layers of mysterious patterns. It was extremely huge. Looking at it, this ancient city seemed to have existed for a very long time. Ta. A small team from the Hidden Knight training camp stepped into the city. The leader was Qi Ruolin, followed by Hu Jinyu and O Yangyi. The 2 humans and 1 beast got along very well. They all came from the Xing Feng branch and had a close relationship. In the survival domain, the most important factor in forming a team wasn't strength, but relationship. Only with a good relationship could they form a team. Otherwise, infighting was a small matter, but killing and plotting against each other was a big matter. Although the probability of such things happening was small, it still happened frequently. The relationship between people was too complicated. Especially when seeing a top-grade treasure, who wouldn't be tempted? Ah! Qi Ruolin's expression suddenly changed, and his eyes widened. Hu Jinyu and O Yangyi followed Qi Ruolin's footsteps into the ancient city. They were also stunned and looked at each other. The 2 humans and 1 beast looked at their feet at the same time. Ripples flowed like water, and a strange power condensed around their bodies. Behind them, an inexplicable pattern appeared, as if they were in a strange world. Brother Qi, we are. Hu Jinyu faintly understood and looked at Qi Ruolin with a bitter smile. We have stepped into the domain realm. Qi Ruolin shook his head with a bitter smile and looked at Hu Jinyu and O Yangyi. Feel it. This is the power of a domain. Then we will retreat as soon as possible. Hu Jinyu and O Yangyi nodded. When the 3 of them formed a team, they had a consensus that they would never touch a king's domain, not to mention an emperor's domain. The bigger the appetite, the bigger the portion of food you eat. A king's domain wasn't something they could touch. Shwa, shwa, shwa. The 3 figures immediately retreated from the ancient city. There was no such thing as being forced in the survival zone. If they didn't want to enter a king's domain, they could leave at any time. So this is a king's domain. Yang pondered. I have entered it once before. Qi Ruolin nodded. No matter if it is a king's domain or an emperor's domain, nothing special can be seen from the outside. It will only be triggered when one enters the domain. Unfortunately, Hu Jinyu shook his head. Although we are lucky, we don't have the strength to try. Qi Ruolin smiled. It is not much luck. After staying in the survival zone for a long time, you will encounter it a few times. Hu Jinyu and Yang nodded. Indeed, there were 10,080 king's domains. If one stayed in the survival zone for decades, it would be hard not to encounter them unless one stayed in the same place all the time. Let's go. We will continue to look for lone beasts. Okay. Chapter 2464. Ding. A gentle sound rang in his mind. Lin Feng looked at hidden exalt Luo Jing. His survival points had increased from 1190 to 1200. Every 10 years in the survival domain, survival points would be rewarded. The first 10 years were 10 points, the second 20 points, the third 30 points, and so on. Now, 10 years had passed. 1/10 of the time is gone just like that. Lin Feng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In these 10 years, his luck wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. He didn't get what he wanted, but got a bunch of what he didn't want. He killed a bunch of giant ferocious beasts, and got 6 survival crystals. That was a lot. After all, the chances of getting survival crystals from giant ferocious beasts were very low. Savage ferocious beasts only got 20%, and normal giant ferocious beasts were almost negligible. Lin Feng got 6 survival crystals, 4 of which came from savage ferocious beasts, and 1 from a giant ferocious beast lord. His luck was average, but he met a lot of giant ferocious beasts. Killing 2 giant ferocious beast lords gave him a 50% chance of getting 1 survival crystal. Killing 18 savage ferocious beasts gave him a 20% chance of getting 4 survival crystals. The last survival crystal came from a high-class giant ferocious beast. Although the chance was only 5%, he killed a lot of them. He met 37 of them, double the number of savage ferocious beasts. Even so, he only got 6 survival crystals. For other cultivators, it might be very satisfying, but for Lin Feng, it was definitely not a satisfactory answer. He planned to get 60 survival crystals in the first 50 years, which meant he would get 12 survival crystals every year. In the first 10 years, he only got half of the quota. Moreover, the first 10 years had the most giant ferocious beasts. After that, the number of giant ferocious beasts would gradually decrease, and the fewer the giant ferocious beasts there were, the harder it would be to get survival crystals. In order to get 60 survival crystals, he had to find a king's domain, and it had to be a king's domain that no one had explored before. Otherwise, most of the savage ferocious beasts and giant ferocious beast lords would have been killed. How many survival crystals could he get? It's been 10 years, how unlucky. Lin Feng did not give up on his search. He continued to walk in circles, but as the inner diameter continued to expand, each circle took a long time. He knew that if he continued to search like this, it would only be a matter of time before he found a king's domain, and it would definitely happen within 50 years. But the problem was, what if the king's domain that he had spent so much effort to find had already been entered by someone else? There were over 10 million cultivators in the survival zone. 10800 king domains might seem like a lot, but it was nothing compared to the tens of millions of cultivators. Oh! Lin Feng couldn't help but look at the map on the Qian Zun Luo crystal. 10 years ago, there were 3 white dots that were a distance away from him, but now they were much closer. They were his 3 good friends, Qi Ruolin, Hu Jinyu, Yang. The 3 white dots had gathered together a long time ago. They had formed a team and were training in the survival domain. Talk. Lin Feng directly contacted Hu Jinyu. Drip, on that side the call was instantly connected. Haha, Hu Jinyu's hearty laughter sounded in his ears. Busy man, you finally thought of us. Lin Feng couldn't help but smile, feeling some warmth in his heart. How is it? Is everyone all right? We're fine, don't worry. Hu Jinyu smiled. We've already hunted 2 survival crystals. Just one more and we'll be able to pass the survival zone. That's good. Lin Feng smiled. He already knew that Hu Jinyu's goal was to obtain 3 survival crystals and pass the test. After all, staying in the survival zone for 40 years to gather enough survival points was actually a very dangerous task. On the other hand, hunting giant vicious beasts would be much easier. First, they had more people, so they could attract the giant vicious beast. Second, the 3 of them could work together and avoid the giant vicious beasts if they were too strong. Third, the giant vicious beasts had no intelligence, so they were much easier to deal with compared to the god-slaying training camp's cultivators. If it's not enough, I have survival crystals here, Lin Feng said. Great. If we really can't hunt, we'll ask you, the rich man. Hu Jinyu didn't decline and smiled. How is it, brother Lin? How's your harvest in these 10 years? Not good. Lin Feng shook his head. It's okay, it's just the beginning. Hu Jinyu encouraged. Lin Feng nodded. I only met 5 god-slaying training camp's cultivators, and 2 of them ran away. I didn't even get 10 survival crystals. The voice on the other side suddenly stopped. After a long time, Hu Jinyu's stunned voice came. You met 5 god-slaying training camp's cultivators? Yes. Lin Feng replied. Hu Jinyu said woodenly. 2 ran away, then the remaining 3 are killed. Lin Feng said. According to the survival zone's rules, regardless of whether there was a death immortal puppet or not, it was counted as a kill. Hu Jinyu sucked in a breath of cold air. Oh my god, the hidden venerable training camp's cultivators have to hide when they see the god-slaying training camp. You, on the other hand, killed 3 of them and made 2 run away. Lin Feng thought of the 2 that ran away and couldn't help but sigh. Their cultivators are really hard to kill. Hu Jinyu was already rolling his eyes. What did he mean by hard to kill? The 2 of them weren't talking on the same channel. When they saw the hidden venerable training camp's cultivators, they couldn't wait to hide. So, what's your survival points now? Hu Jinyu couldn't help but ask. Exactly 1,200 points. Lin Feng said. Hiss, Hu Jinyu's expression changed, and he sucked in a breath of cold air. 1,200 survival points. All 3 of them had 10 survival points, given by the top AI. Compared to Lin Feng, their survival points were simply a joke. You are amazing. Hu Jinyu felt a deep blow to himself. The corner of his mouth twitched. How many survival crystals do you have? Do you have 3? Lin Feng said. Hu Jinyu touched his forehead. His hands seemed to be covered in cold sweat. He looked at Qi Wulin and Ouyangyi with a bitter smile and shook his head helplessly. The 3 of them had worked hard to hunt for 2 survival crystals. Compared to Lin Feng, the difference was too big. It was really infuriating to compare oneself to others. By the way, Brother Hu, have you found a king's domain? Lin Feng asked. Yes, why are you asking this? Hu Jinyu replied without hesitation. Lin Feng's heart jumped and his eyes lit up. As expected, his luck was bad, but it didn't mean that the other cultivators' luck was bad. Hu Jinyu, Little Fox, and the others had indeed encountered a king's domain. Do you still remember the location? Lin Feng asked. Yes. Hu Jinyu replied. Suddenly, he was startled. Brother Lin, don't tell me you want to go there? Yes. Lin Feng said directly. Can you take me there? Hu Jinyu couldn't help but say, that's a king's domain. Brother Lin, there's more than one beast king whose strength has reached the threshold of venerable. Are you sure you want to go? Yes. Lin Feng nodded. Without a beast king, he didn't want to go. Chapter 2465. Yuan Shiyu gulped. Brother Lin, your strength can't be comparable to Beast King, right? Yuan Shiyu didn't know what he was saying. Comparable to the ferocious Beast King? That was the strength of a beginner venerable. Top 100 on the ranking board. Lin Feng, was he that strong now? No. Lin Feng smiled. Yuan Shiyu couldn't help but sigh. If that was the case, it would be too terrifying. However, you should be able to fight Beast King. Lin Feng's voice rang in his ears. Yuan Shiyu's eyes widened. He was dumbfounded. Lin Feng wasn't afraid of Beast King. Although Beast King was a beginner venerable, it didn't have intelligence. It only knew how to kill. It couldn't compare to a beginner venerable cultivator. His strength had already reached the peak invincible divine lord level. He wasn't that far from the beginner venerable. He could definitely fight Beast King. Even if he couldn't win, he could at least keep his life. After ending the call with Yuan Shiyu, Lin Feng stopped and floated in the air. Ancient City, King's Domain. Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he looked at the map on the hidden venerable Luo crystal. With his current position, it would take him about 6 years to reach Yuan Shiyu's location. And from Yuan Shiyu's current position, it would take him 4 to 5 years to reach the King's Domain. About 10 years, Lin Feng thought. There was no need to hesitate. Since there was this chance, he had to grasp it. Even if he continued to circle around here, it didn't mean he would find it in 10 years. On the other hand, as long as he met Yuan Shiyu's group 6 years later, it would take him another 4 to 5 years to find the King's Domain. One was uncertain, one was certain. There was no need to choose. Finding a King's Domain in 10 years was definitely worth it. After all, he had set the survival crystals as a target of 50 years. When he reached the King's Domain, it would only be 20 years. There was more than enough time. As for wasting 10 years of Yuan Shiyu's group's time, he would give them 2 survival crystals as compensation. Whoosh! Lin Feng sped towards where Hu Jinyu was. His target was clear. It was not that he had given up, but that he had changed his target. If he had enough time, he could come back and search again. In the survival realm, there was a glacier as smooth as a mirror. Beautiful ice sculptures stood tall and lifelike. Giant beasts sealed in ice could be seen everywhere, as if they were frozen and made into specimens. Huge ice palaces explained the beauty of the buildings, making people unable to take their eyes off them. The smooth ground could clearly show the appearance of every cultivator. At this moment there was a cultivator flying at high speed above. His stature was very short, and he had a pair of black butterfly-like wings on his back. He was flying at a low altitude at an extremely fast speed. Behind him, there were continuous roars. It was an extremely ferocious Beast King that was chasing after him. "Big guy, why are you chasing me? Go after Air Luo and his gang." The black-winged youth muttered unhappily. Even so, he still could not stop. After all, he was ranked in the top 1,000 in the god-slaying training camp. In terms of strength, he was not as strong as the Beast King. If he could fight, he would have already fought with the Beast King. Damn it, if it continues to chase me, all the treasures will be taken away by Air Luo and his gang. The black-winged youth muttered. His body flashed with a black light, wrapped in blood, and the space fluctuated violently. Suddenly, with a swoosh, he disappeared from where he was. Indeterminate space teleportation. Roar! The ferocious Beast King, which resembled a white bear, roared furiously. It stared at the void with its 2 horns and looked around, but it could no longer find any trace of the black-winged youth. Although it was a Beast King, its intelligence was not even comparable to that of an ordinary human. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this time, the black-winged youth was continuously performing indeterminate space teleportation, which was rapidly changing his position in the same area. It was equivalent to continuous teleportation. However, different from teleportation, it changed space in a small area, and the speed was very fast, so it was safe. Unless the opponent happened to be lying in ambush, The possibility of being killed was very small. The most important thing was that when the inertia of continuous teleportation disappeared, he could freely stop. Glaciers, ice palaces, and ice sculptures kept appearing in front of him. The black-winged youth was familiar with this place. After all, he had been in this king's domain for more than 10 days. He had entered almost at the same time as Erluo's group. This was an unexplored king's domain, and there were many unknown treasures. I finally got rid of that big guy. I hope it will chase after Erluo and his gang. Then I will have time to search for treasures. The black-winged youth grinned. Suddenly, everything in front of him turned dark. The endless glaciers disappeared in an instant and were replaced by a boundless darkness. It was like a black imperial palace, and its aura suddenly became different. What? The black-winged youth was stunned and stopped. Although the indefinite spatial teleportation was not directional, it would definitely be carried out within the same area, within a small area. Originally, he was in the king's domain, and it was impossible for him to leave the king's domain. Moreover, even if he left, it was impossible for him to change the surrounding environment. What was going on? The black-winged youth widened his eyes and looked at his feet in horror. At this time, the light of the domain seemed to have changed from white to black, and from the ordinary hexagonal pattern to a complicated 18-sided pattern. The secret pattern of the domain was extremely complicated. Where was he? How did he come here? Asked Big Brother. The black-winged youth felt a little uneasy, but with some excitement, he quickly connected to the god-slaying crystal. Beep. Speak. A low voice came from the other side of the god-slaying crystal. Big Brother, I found a strange place. The black-winged youth told the truth about what had just happened. He and his big brother were brothers, and they were very close. They had entered the deicide training camp together. However, his talent was slightly worse, and he was only ranked 3,572. His big brother, on the other hand, was a super expert on the deicide training camp's ranking list. 95th Yishioshui. After a while, the god-slaying crystal said in a low voice, "If I'm not wrong, you should have entered the king's domain by accident." The king's domain. The black-winged youth's eyes widened, and his expression changed greatly. Run. Yishioshui's low voice came from the god-slaying crystal, with a hint of urgency and worry. Wait for me. Don't let the ferocious beast emperor. Chi. A bright red peony bloomed in the darkness. The black-winged youth happened to be talking to his big brother, Yishioshue. In an instant, his eyes widened, his body trembled violently, and he spat out blood. A beautiful crystal-like puppet appeared in the void, and the black-winged youth fell to the ground, completely unaware of what had happened. Chapter 2466. Luck was something that was hard to predict. When they didn't come, they wouldn't come no matter what. But when they came, they would often come in group. Lin Feng, who was rushing to meet up with Yuan Xiu, suddenly slowed down and looked into the distance in shock. He could see a beautiful and transparent white, like the land of a white glacier. Even from so far away, he could see the smooth mirror-like ground, reflecting the beautiful light. This was a strange area that made people unable to look away. In the survival zone, most of the king domains had a distinctive characteristic, different from the rest. Therefore, Lin Feng had entered the boundless lake, the tower-shaped mountain peak, the vast sea of trees, and so on, but without exception, none of them were king domains. But this time, this white glacier gave Lin Feng a different feeling. It was an indescribable attraction, an indescribable feeling. With his extraordinary intuition and perception, Lin Feng changed direction almost without thinking and rushed toward the white glacier. This time it was real. Lin Feng entered the white glacier. In an instant, a strange energy covered him. A hexagonal white light appeared under his feet, and a faint barrier appeared behind him. It was as if he had entered a new area. King domain. Lin Feng couldn't help but laugh. He had searched for a full 10 years and couldn't find any of them. Now, he had just received news of a king domain from Yuanxiu, and he just happened to bump into another one on the way, who said that blessings never come in pairs. 2 king domains. Lin Feng was very satisfied. He naturally wouldn't complain about this kind of opportunity. After all, exploring a king domain didn't take much time. It could be as short as 10 days, or as long as 1 or 2 years. My luck has finally blossomed. Lin Feng smiled. On Yuan Xiu's side, strictly speaking, it wasn't his luck. But now it was his luck without a doubt. Judging from the energy and restriction of the domain, it should be a king domain. Lin Feng could clearly feel that the king's domain boosted the strength of the giant ferocious beasts. Moreover, within the king's domain, he had nowhere to hide and was known by all the giant ferocious beasts. This was rather terrifying, because there must be a beast king in the king's domain, and there must be more than one. Just the horde of ferocious beast overlords alone was enough to make a cultivator suffer. But to Lin Feng, this was a dream come true. Other cultivators could only exchange for 30 survival crystals at most, but as he was a newcomer, he could exchange for twice that, a total of 60 survival crystals. 6,000 hidden revered points. One had to know that Lin Feng only had 3,987 Qian Zun points left. Qian revered points were too precious, and the further one progressed, the harder it would be to obtain Qian revered points. The newbie stage was the best time to obtain hidden revered point. I hope no one has discovered this place yet. Lin Feng hoped. Whether a king's domain had been discovered or not was a completely different matter. The king's domains that had been discovered were probably the most difficult to deal with, the ferocious beast kings, and some treasures that were hard to obtain. But the king's domains that had not been discovered not only had many giant ferocious beasts and ferocious beast overlords, but also treasures that were easy to obtain. So, Lin Feng quickly sped forward, a transparent light appearing on the surface of his body. It was the piercing bone domain. Within the king's domain, all domains would be suppressed. Even the domain of a peak heavenly law treasure wouldn't be able to do much. But compared to a peak heavenly law treasure, at least a peak heavenly law treasure could protect him. Right now, Lin Feng's twilight domain would be useless, but the piercing bone domain would at least have some offensive power. Moreover, the domain itself was the best aura detection tool. Facing this glacial region that had a high probability of having a ferocious beast king, Lin Feng didn't dare to be careless. After all, with his current combat strength, it was really difficult to deal with the ferocious beast king. What a slippery ground! It's a bit difficult to step on. Lin Feng sped away from the ground. He couldn't use his strength on such ground, so it was better to use his strength in the air. He quickly glanced around. There were ice sculptures everywhere, and each one was lifelike. They seemed to contain a special heavenly law, but he had to immerse himself in them to comprehend them. He had a vague feeling, but he couldn't concentrate at this time. Actually, these ice sculptures are also treasures. Lin Feng's comprehension was amazing. He could completely see through them. If he were outside, these ice sculptures would be very valuable. The heavenly law comprehended by looking at these ice sculptures was far more amazing than what he had gained in the dangerous heaven region. It was just that there was too little time. Moreover, there was danger at every moment in the king's domain. There was no time for him to comprehend. Take them away? No. Lin Feng secretly felt that it was a pity. These ice sculptures were connected to the king's domain. They were like a perfect whole, inseparable. It was impossible to take away these ice sculptures alone. Obviously, the Venerable intended to do so. He probably wants to give the latecomers some basic benefits, Lin Feng thought. Even if all the treasures here were taken away and the ferocious beasts were all dead, at least there were still some heavenly laws to comprehend. It was a worthwhile trip. Lin Feng guessed right. These ice sculptures were indeed placed by the Venerable. They were the work of a master ice sculptor at the level of Huang Zun. Naturally, they were extraordinary. With Huang Zun's understanding of the heavenly law, he could make them appear in ice sculptures instead of giving a vague lecture. It was twice the result with half the effort. Unfortunately, this master ice sculptor at the level of Huang Zun set up restrictions and didn't want to let the ice sculptures out. With his status, any one of these ice sculptures was a priceless treasure. Its real value was comparable to that of a peak-level heavenly law supreme treasure. In the realm of life, it was not so easy to obtain a peak-level heavenly law supreme treasure. Frozen ferocious beasts. Their expressions and movements are well preserved. The heavenly law supreme treasure is too profound. The essence of the heavenly law of the universe? Or something else? Lin Feng felt a lot of emotions along the way. These frozen ferocious beasts were living specimens, but they seemed a little different from the ice sculptures. However, they were closer to the level of a peak-level divine master and easier to grasp. Looking at the essence of their frozen ferocious beasts was like using the tip of a finger to open a window and see the origin of the heavenly law supreme treasure. He could use these frozen ferocious beasts to create saber techniques and comprehend the heavenly law supreme treasure. Where are the treasures? Lin Feng knew that what he needed to do now was not to cultivate here, but to search for the treasures in the king's domain. I've been running for so long, but I haven't seen a single ferocious beast. Lin Feng had a faint ominous premonition in his heart. If this king's domain had not been explored, then he would have at least encountered a ferocious beast by now. But until now there was nothing. Qi. The bone-piercing domain seemed to fluctuate. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Chapter 2467. It's the other cultivators. And there's more than one. What a strong aura, what is that? Before the naked eye could see it, the piercing bone domain had already sensed it. The fluctuating spatial energy resonated with the surrounding space, allowing it to explore a relatively large area. In addition to the three cultivators, Lin Feng also detected two abnormally terrifying auras. Ferocious Beast King. 5 auras were moving at an extremely fast speed. It was obvious that the two Ferocious Beast King were chasing after the three cultivators. Lin Feng reacted in an instant and ran away. He wasn't an idiot. 1 Ferocious Beast King was already very scary. 2? Wasn't that courting death? What's more, the identities of the 3 cultivators were unknown. It didn't matter if they were from the Hidden Saint training camp or not, it was best to avoid them first to avoid getting into trouble. So, I'm not the first one to explore this king's domain. Lin Feng quickly distanced himself. Although he had sensed the 3 cultivators and the 2 Ferocious Beast King, the other party must have sensed him as well. However, the other party couldn't even take care of themselves right now. Saving their lives was more important. How could they have the time to care about him? As for the 2 Ferocious Beast King, he didn't have to worry about them. There were 3 cultivators over there, and he was the only one here. The Ferocious Beast King would definitely not find trouble with him. Moreover, it was the 3 cultivators who had provoked the Ferocious Beast King. Generally, the king's domain has at least 2 to 3 Ferocious Beast King, and at most 8 to 10 Ferocious Beast King. But even if there were 8 to 10 Ferocious Beast King, they wouldn't gather together. In this part of the king's domain, it's estimated that 2 Ferocious Beast King is the limit. Quickly circling around in a U shape, Lin Feng turned back. Where would the treasure of the king's domain be? It could exist anywhere, but the most likely location of the most valuable treasure was usually where the Ferocious Beast King was. The reason why the 3 cultivators had provoked the Beast King could not be ruled out because the Beast King had directly come looking for trouble with them. However, there was a high probability that they had found the Beast King's lair and coveted its treasures, causing them to be hunted down by the Beast King. Kill it with a counterattack. Swish. Lin Feng's eyes were exquisite, and his speed was extremely fast. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 one-eyed creatures with long golden braids were running at high speed. The one in the lead had deep wrinkles on his eye, and he was the strongest among them. He was Ere Luo, who the black-winged youth had mentioned before. He ranked 3,813th in the Godslayer training camp, almost the same as the black-winged youth. The other 2 single-eyed creatures with long golden braids belonged to the same clan as Ere Luo, the black-eyed clan. This clan was born with the ability to control space, and they were good at close combat. Their strength was not weak at all, and their understanding of the strength heavenly Tao was also quite outstanding. They were a clan with comprehensive talents. Even so, it was still difficult for the 3 black-eyed clan experts to kill the Beast King. "Hey! Was that Aura Yi Xiuwen?" Ere Luo shouted. Yi Xiuwen was the black-winged youth from before. He had entered the king's domain at the same time as Ere Luo and the other 2, so they knew each other's existence. No, Ere Luo denied directly. Among the 3, his sensing ability was the most outstanding because he had a peak-level heavenly Tao treasure that was proficient in sensing auras. "It seems to be a human." Ere Luo's single eye shone. "I only saw a blurry shadow, but judging from the aura, it's most likely a human cultivator. I just don't know if it's from our training camp." Ere Luo snorted angrily. That bastard ran really fast. When he had sensed the aura, his first reaction was to lure the Beast King over. Even if he could not attract the enemy's attention, he could at least share the pressure. Who would have thought that the cultivator was so cunning that he would run away directly? "Humans have always been smart," Ere Luo said. "Lucky bastard." Ere Luo gritted his teeth. "One more incense burner, one more ghost. Yi Xiuwen is already annoying enough, and now there's a human." Ere Luo was extremely unhappy. There were only so many treasures in the king's domain. If you took them, they would be gone. The rule of the survival domain was that no one could steal the treasures. They belonged to whoever took them. "It's useless," Ere Luo said. "We've killed all the ferocious beasts and ferocious beast kings. We've taken the majority of the treasures, and Yi Xiuwen took the minority. We've searched the entire king's domain. That human didn't get anything." "No, there's more," Ere Luo said with a serious expression. "There's still the most valuable treasure." "Who can take that treasure?" Ere Luo immediately denied. "There are 4 ferocious beast king. One went to find Yi Xiuwen, 2 are behind us, and 1 is squatting in the nest. Think of a way. We must get it." Ere Luo gritted his teeth. "All the treasures here combined cannot compare to that 3-leafed soul grass." Ere Luo and Ere Luo's expressions turned serious. Indeed, the treasures they had, even if they added the treasures Yi Xiuwen had obtained, could not compare to the value of the 3-leafed soul grass. As for a true treasure, a single one was already the limit. "But Luo, speaking of which, on the other side of the king's domain, what kind of treasure are the 6 beast kings guarding?" Ere Luo asked. "I don't know either." Ere Luo shook his head. "The greater the number of ferocious beast kings guarding it, the higher the value of the treasure. This is the king's domain of the top 10 ferocious beast kings. The treasure over there must be extremely valuable." Ere Luo said, "Don't be wishful thinking. We can't even deal with the 2 behind us." Roar! Roar! Of the 2 ferocious beast kings, one had huge wings that covered the entire sky, while the other had 3 heads, each of which was spitting out purple lightning. They were chasing after Ere Luo and the other 2 in a frenzy. "That's enough distance, Luo Peng," Ere Luo shouted. "Your defense is the strongest. Quickly go to the ferocious beast king's nest and retrieve that treasure. Ere Luo and I will hold the fort here. Go." "Okay." Peng's eyes turned cold, and his figure suddenly changed. As Luo and Erquin attacked the 2 ferocious beast kings, he turned back. This was the plan they had decided on earlier, luring the snake out of its hole. Whoosh! Lin Feng's speed was astonishing as he went straight for the beast king's nest. Although he did not know the exact location of the nest, He could determine the route the two ferocious Beast King and the three cultivators were taking from the airflow fluctuations of the king's domain. That was already enough. Although the energy fluctuations became smaller as he went further, Lin Feng could vaguely feel that he was slowly approaching his target, and getting closer and closer. A terrifying and powerful aura seemed to be not far away. It was very similar to what he had sensed before. Roar! A deafening sound rang in his ears. It was a huge monster with 3 elephant trunks. A pair of green eyes covered in scales shot a beam of light from afar. The Ferocious Beast King. Chapter 2468. Pung! Lin Feng blocked the terrifying light as if it could penetrate his soul. What a strong time law! Cold sweat dripped down Lin Feng's forehead as he retreated. In that instant it was as if time had stopped. In the next instant, that terrifying beam of light appeared before him. If he hadn't been prepared, he would have been seriously injured by that attack. The first ferocious Beast King. Lin Feng had killed countless ferocious beasts and many ferocious beast overlords, but he had never met a ferocious Beast King. After all, there were very few ferocious Beast King in other parts of the survival zone. So this is the top 100 of the training camp, a combat power comparable to the threshold of a venerable. Lin Feng had been prepared for this. The moment he saw the 3 cultivators, he knew that if there were any ferocious beasts left in this Beast King's domain, it would only be a ferocious Beast King. Its universal talent was too terrifying. It was much stronger than the ferocious beast overlord's talent. As for the ferocious beasts, it could not be compared at all. Only such a ferocious beast core would be useful. Chi. The moment Lin Feng dodged, he turned his hand and slashed. Aurora, absolute speed. At an astonishing speed, filled with Aurora's way of the heavens, it landed on the scales of the ferocious Beast King with 3 elephant trunks. Clang! It was like metal colliding. However, it was unscathed. What a sturdy armor! Lin Feng's heart trembled. He instantly changed his position and dodged the whip-like elephant trunk. He expected the ferocious Beast King to have an amazing defense. He could tell from its body shape and attack method. Whoosh! 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 Lin Feng quickly changed his position. The afterimages behind him were constantly smashed into pieces by the 3 elephant trunk. From time to time, the universal talent light like the first time would shoot out from the ferocious Beast King's eyes. However, Lin Feng, who was prepared, would not be hit. After putting some distance between them, Lin Feng's expression was as calm as an ancient well. He didn't panic at all. Indeed, in terms of strength, he was not as good as the ferocious Beast King, but what did the ferocious beast lack the most? Wisdom. They were a race that only knew how to kill. They only knew how to act instinctively, or they were given the will of the Venerable One. For example, guarding the treasure. There must be treasures in the cave behind it. Lin Feng could faintly sense soul fluctuations. If his senses weren't wrong, this should be a treasure related to the soul. Something that the Beast King was guarding was obviously not an ordinary item. It must be much more precious than the treasures that were scattered all over the king's domain. However, the giant Beast King, who had 3 elephant trunks and was proficient in time-innate secret techniques, refused to come out. Just like that, they stood guard at the cave entrance and attacked from afar. Its speed isn't fast, so that must be its weakness, but Lin Feng was also helpless. If he could lure it out, he could use his speed to enter the cave and obtain the treasure, then use his speed to escape. Although he wasn't its opponent, it definitely wouldn't be able to kill him. But now, it refused to come out and stood guard at the cave entrance. Not to mention obtaining the treasure, even entering the cave was incomparably difficult. Including the 2 from before, there are actually 3 Beast King guarding the treasure in this cave. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. He obviously knew the characteristics of the treasures in the king's domain. The more Beast King guards there were, the more precious the treasure was. But what Lin Feng didn't know was that the treasure in this cave was actually guarded by 4 ferocious Beast King. It was just that there was still one that was chasing after the black-winged youth, Yi Xiuwen. There's not much time left. Those 3 cultivators will return at any time. We have to end this quickly and obtain the treasure before they do. Lin Feng understood the other party's thoughts. It was 3 against 2. They clearly wanted to lure the 2 Beast King out of the cave and create enough distance. Now, one of them had probably returned to retrieve the treasure. How would they retrieve it? Fight head-on? Lin Feng continuously dodged the Beast King's attack. He frowned slightly. He could get close to the Beast King and fight it head-on. Then, when it was unprepared, he could enter the cave and obtain the treasure. But this Beast King's body was too huge, and such a huge body had incomparably dense attack power. Once he entered the cave, it would be like entering a dead end. There was an 80 to 90% chance that he would be stuck inside. Unless he could kill this Beast King, this method was too risky. Feeling a chill behind him, Lin Feng knew that he didn't have much time left. But he wasn't good at defense. Going in alone was too risky. Although he had a 50% chance of surviving, was it worth it to use that chance to obtain a treasure? It's not worth it. Lin Feng instantly made a decision. His mind was clear, and he wasn't blinded by the treasure. Taking a step back, even if he obtained the treasure, it might not be useful to him. My main goal in entering the survival zone is to obtain hidden revered points and a newcomer's ranking. Treasures are only secondary. Lin Feng clashed with the Beast King and quickly retreated. Shua. As the distance between them increased, he heard the Beast King's angry roars, but it didn't chase after him. It must have been given a mission by the Venerable One. Lin Feng instantly judged, but he wasn't disappointed. Instead, he was exceptionally clear-headed. If I'm not wrong, one of the 3 cultivators just now will appear soon. The one that appears must be very good at defense. Let him be the bait. Lin Feng had basically given up on the treasure. But that didn't mean that he had to give up on other things. Other than the treasure, this Beast King would definitely have a survival crystal. Moreover, he liked its Beast King's original core very much. Furthermore, he might even be able to obtain additional survival points. It seemed that the cultivator was from the god-slaying training camp. Shua. Lin Feng quietly retreated. He estimated the distance in his heart and didn't use bone-piercing domain. Domain was a double-edged sword. He could sense the opponent, but the opponent could also sense him. It wasn't suitable to use it now. Since he wanted to be the Oriole, he couldn't let the Mantis know that he was behind him. It didn't matter if he couldn't sense it. Because there would be fluctuations in energy, the battle would definitely cause changes in the area, especially, the roar of this ferocious Beast King is quite loud. Lin Feng smiled. At this time, he heard the weak roars of the 3 elephant-nosed Beast King. It was because they were far away. Just as he had expected, they started fighting. Now I can get closer. Lin Feng slowly closed the distance. He wasn't afraid that the opponent would sense him because he had to deal with the Beast King. He couldn't even take care of himself. In the midst of an intense battle, he didn't have time to care about anything else. Shua. Shua. Lin Feng continued to close in. His eyes slightly lit up. The line of sight in front of him opened up. Very good, it's a cultivator from the god-slaying training camp. Lin Feng's lips curled up. Chapter 2469. Lin Feng might have had some misgivings if his opponent was from the hidden Venerable training camp instead of the God Slayer training camp. After all, they were all from the same training camp. However, since his opponent was from the God Slayer training camp, there was nothing to be concerned about. The survival realm was a place where people met on the battlefield. Dark Eye Clan expert. Lin Feng recognized it at a glance. Although the human, demon, and devil races were the 3 largest races in the 7th God world, there were still many other races with extraordinary aptitudes and talents, and there were quite a few of them. The Dark Eye clan was one of them. Their golden braided eye was their most distinctive feature. Without fighting, no one knew who was stronger and who was weaker. However, Lin Feng knew that the other party's strength was definitely not as strong as the ferocious Beast Kings. Otherwise, the two ferocious Beast Kings would not have been chased all over the king's domain. As long as two of them kept one of the ferocious Beast Kings busy, they could kill the other in a one-on-one battle. 3 God Slayer training camp cultivators were no match for the two ferocious Beast King even in a 3-on-2 battle, let alone a one-on-one battle. Even if they were strong, they would not be that strong. At most, they would be on the same level as him. Peak Divine Lords were invincible. Lin Feng looked down from above. He had no intention of joining the battle for the time being. The Dark Eye clan expert had already used his space secret technique. The defense of a peak heavenly law treasure was fully exposed. He was in close combat with the 3-trunked ferocious Beast King. However, the Beast King seemed to know the Dark Eye clan expert's goal and guarded the cave tightly. Its body was too huge. Although there were still small gaps to enter the cave, if the Dark Eye clan expert tried to force his way in, he would be attacked by the ferocious Beast King. At that time, he would not even be able to protect himself, let alone obtain the treasure. Good at defense. Looking for a chance to enter the cave? Lin Feng looked calm. It was similar to what he had expected. However, the Dark Eye clan expert had the space secret technique. Apart from defense, he could also use space secret technique. It would be much easier for him to obtain the treasure. In terms of ability to obtain the treasure in the cave, Lin Feng was no match for him. Consume more energy. Lin Feng was happy to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. Regardless of whether he joined the battle or not, at least it wouldn't harm him in any way. Naturally, it would be best if he could gain something from it. Even if he didn't get anything in the end, it didn't matter. At least he got to see the tyrannical strength of the Beast King, so this trip wasn't in vain. Pung! Boom! The Black Eye clan's powerhouse and the Beast King fought with all their might, and the cave was starting to crack. Although the Black-Eyed clan's powerhouse couldn't injure the Beast King due to the difference in their strength, his defense was exceptionally shocking. He had consumed a lot of the Beast King's strength. The Peak Heavenly Dao Treasure Battle Armor is already at 120% of its power. Lin Feng sighed. He didn't have enough time. He couldn't even bring out the 100% defense of the Perishing Savage armor. This Dark Eye clan elite had utilized the potential of a Peak Heavenly Way treasure to the extreme. One piece was worth more than several pieces. Oh! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. As a golden light burst out, the Dark Eye clan's powerhouse aimed for a gap. He took the Beast King's explosive attack head-on and entered the cave despite being injured. This angered the Beast King to the extreme. Whoosh! A red light bloomed on the surface of the Beast King's body. It was like a crazy scorching sun. There's such a move? Lin Feng's eyes widened. His heart skipped a beat. The red light shrouded the Beast King's body and shrunk by almost half. However, its strength, speed, and combat ability suddenly increased. Even its speed, which was originally the weakest, became extremely terrifying. That guy's going to be unlucky. Lin Feng made a judgment in his heart and rushed out in a split second. Fortunately, he didn't rush in recklessly. Otherwise, he would be the unlucky one. The Beast King's combat ability was already at the threshold of a venerable. Now that it had fully erupted, the Beast King's combat ability was probably close to that of a real venerable. Because the cave was small, the Beast King's body was too big. Once the enemy entered the cave, it wouldn't be able to protect the treasure. However, now that its body had shrunk by half, it could easily enter the cave and use the attack method it was best at to fight inside. Strength, defense, terrifying close-range combat. The space in the cave was even smaller. It was undoubtedly disadvantageous for the Dark Eye clan elite who was known for its agility. Whoosh! Lin Feng stopped outside for less than 10 seconds before he arrived at the cave. He wasn't doing this out of kindness, and it was impossible for him to save the trainees of the deicide training camp. However, if the Dark Eye clan's experts were killed, it wouldn't do him any good. Not to mention, he would have to face the terrifying Dire Beast King alone. Now was the right time. The Dark Eye clan elite's aura had weakened by more than half. Facing the crazy Beast King, it couldn't continue and couldn't resist anymore. Dean. Lin Feng didn't hesitate and directly opened the 4 layers of seals. The white battle blade shone like a crystal. At this time, it was full of vigorous combat ability, like an emperor descending. Aurora Absolute Speed. The moment Lin Feng arrived, the aurora had already shrouded the entire cave. The heavenly way of the Minute Realm was accompanied by the heavenly way of chaos. Under the eruption of the third heaven of light and darkness, a powerful force was displayed, directly attacking the ferocious Beast King's abdomen. Chi. The blade was extremely fast. This was Lin Feng's fastest blade, and also the first move of Aurora's blade technique. The moment Dean opened the seal, Lin Feng had already aimed at the Beast King's weakness, 3 inches from its waist and abdomen that wasn't covered by scales. The flashing red light strengthened the Beast King's combat ability, but it didn't strengthen its weak defense. The blade light was extremely condensed. Under the instant explosion of Lin Feng's tyrannical power, it directly slashed through the exposed skin of the Beast King. Chi. Blood spurted wildly, and the Beast King roared in anger. Poor Erping was already an arrow at the end of its flight. Now, it was seriously injured by the Beast King's flashing red palm, and it was being vented miserably. More than half of the golden armor, a peak way of the heaven's treasure, was shattered. Its power was so terrifying. Chi. Lin Feng's movements were too fast, and he did not give the ferocious Beast King any chance to counterattack. The War Saber Deini's space sigils and time sigils strengthened his attack. Aurora Ray flashed past the ferocious Beast King's tiny wounds again, and it was as if he was sprinkling salt on the wounds, which kept expanding. Blood spurted wildly, and the red light had already dimmed in just a few short slashes. This was the effect of a berserk state, and it was originally a short burst of power. The Beast King's injuries worsened and the red light disappeared. Roar! The Beast King roared furiously and gave up on Erping, and attacked Lin Feng, who had plotted against it. However, it was already too late. After the full burst of power, it was no longer a match for Lin Feng, and its weakness was completely grasped. Chi. Dean revealed his loftiness, and Aurora enveloped the cave. Pfff. Blood spurted out. The ferocious Beast King with 3 elephant trunks fell to the ground with a loud bang, dying miserably in the cave. Chapter 2470. The 7th Survival Crystal. 1250 Survival Points. Lin Feng killed the giant ferocious Beast King, so he naturally would not show mercy. He directly stabbed the heavily injured and unconscious Erping. Even though the other party had the death immortal puppet to preserve his life, the test of the survival region for this era had already ended. His survival points are really high. Lin Feng sighed. Killing half of the black-eyed race expert gave him 1250 survival points. He had only accumulated 1,200 survival points in the past 10 years. This one kill was more than what he had gained in the past 10 years. It's still better to kill opponents with similar strength to get more survival points. If he faced this black-eyed race expert head-on, he might be able to defeat him, but it would be difficult to kill him. This time, it was all thanks to the ferocious Beast King that helped him imperceptibly. At the same time, it also proved that his thoughts were correct. In the first 50 years, there was no need to earn survival points. As time went on, the god-slaying training camp's cultivators would accumulate more survival points. By then, it would be much easier to earn survival points. The ferocious Beast King's ferocious original core. Lin Feng took out a beautiful crystal diamond. Complex runes covered the surface of the crystal diamond, which contained a rich secret technique of the law of time. The ferocious Beast King had a 50% chance of obtaining a survival crystal. The ferocious Beast King had a 100% survival crystal. The ferocious Beast King also had a 100% survival crystal. What was the difference? It was this ferocious original core. The difference in value was like heaven and earth. The ferocious Beast King's ferocious original core rarely had time or space element. However, the ferocious Beast King and ferocious Beast King's ferocious original cores usually had time or space element. The hidden heavenly Tao of the universe must contain precise heavenly Tao of time or heavenly Tao of space. Refining and comprehending it had a high chance of becoming a time or space sovereign. Of course, this still depended on one's own talent. However, even if one couldn't comprehend the heavenly Tao of space and become a sovereign, the power of the secret technique after refining would be far greater than the ferocious Beast King's ferocious original core. This secret technique fuses time and light. Just by itself, it's very difficult to comprehend the time heavenly Tao. Lin Feng put the giant ominous core into the hidden Exalt Luo crystal. The more fused a secret technique, the harder it was to separate and comprehend the heavenly Tao. In terms of becoming a time sage, this ferocious prime core was not of much use. But for him it was quite good. The fusion of time and light. The attack is mainly based on light and time is secondary. If I can comprehend it, it will be very beneficial to the creation of Aurora's blade technique. Lin Feng clearly remembered that terrifying light. It was as if it could pierce through the soul. The law of time was compatible with one's soul and could easily affect one's mind. And this was only with the great vicious Beast King's soul. If it was his own soul, it would be even more powerful. Previously, he had a one-on-one fight with this Beast King. In a situation where he was caught off guard, he was almost seriously injured by its universal talent secret technique. Although he was not afraid after he was prepared, it was undeniable that this technique was really strong. The thought flashed through his mind. Lin Feng didn't waste any time on the origin core, because he had more important things to do. The Dark Eye clan's powerhouse shouldn't have time to get the treasure. Lin Feng had a panoramic view of the battle just now. Although the Dark Eye clan's powerhouse desperately entered the cave, he thought that he could quickly find the treasure. He didn't expect the great vicious Beast King to go crazy and activate its bloodline talent, shrinking its body to increase its combat power. From head to toe, the Dark Eye clan's powerhouse had no chance. Because he was caught off guard, he was seriously injured by the great vicious Beast King and fainted. Even if he didn't appear, he would be killed by the great vicious Beast King and wouldn't be able to get the treasure. Whoosh! Lin Feng entered the depths of the cave. Although there were many paths in the cave, he had already sensed the only path. It was a gentle call from the depths of his soul. It was clear and direct. This was a soul-type treasure. Soul immortal grass? A green crystal grass appeared in Lin Feng's mind. This was one of the top treasures that had appeared in the survival realm. One could greatly improve the quality of one's soul. Impossible, a treasure like the soul immortal grass would only appear in the king domain. Lin Feng smiled faintly. In the blink of an eye, he had already reached the deepest part of the cave. On a barren, brownish-yellow patch of grass, there were 3 branches with 3 delicate leaves swaying gently. There was only one stalk, but in the depths of this empty cave, the yellow light was incomparably eye-catching. Puff! Lin Feng directly picked it and put it into the hidden revered Luo Jing. While the hidden revered Luo Jing flashed and a clear message appeared. 3-leaf lemon soul grass. Eating the leaves will increase soul control. Eating the main stem will increase soul quality. Estimated value, 2,000 revered points. The hidden revered Luo Jing connected to the top AI and had the detailed information of every treasure. A treasure worth 2,000 revered points. Lin Feng couldn't help but sigh. Lin Feng did not have the time to think carefully. The moment he plucked the 3-leaf soul grass, Lin Feng rushed out of the cave. His figure suddenly flashed and disappeared from the ferocious Beast King's lair. After a while, whoosh, whoosh, two scarred figures rushed over. They had a golden braid and a strong power gathered in one eye. They were the other two experts of the Dark Eye race, Er Luo and Er Kun. Their expressions were ugly. Roar! Roar! Behind them, the two great vicious Beast King were still chasing after them. Their attacks were terrifying. Pring is dead. Er Luo gritted his teeth. That great vicious Beast King is also dead. Er Qin's brows were tightly knitted together, the creases on her single eye were extremely deep. Standing outside the cave, she had already peeked inside almost instantly. The 3 leaves soul grass is gone. Damn it! Er Luo shouted angrily, extremely unhappy. However, he couldn't vent his anger. The two great vicious Beast King arrived one after the other, causing Er Luo and Er Kun to run away again. It was already difficult enough to fight 3 against 2, let alone 2 against 2. They were even more battered and exhausted. They had even fought the ferocious Beast King before and had suffered some injuries. The possibility of mutual destruction is very small, Er Kun said in a low voice. We were plotted against by a third party. Er Luo's expression was ugly. He came from the deicide training camp and had seen all kinds of schemes. He saw through this situation at a glance. Yi Xiuan. Er Kun was very calm. Er Luo said. He was also targeted by the great vicious Beast King. The possibility is very small. That human, Er Kun said. That's right. Er Luo's one eye cracked open in anger, revealing his loftiness. A mere human dares to pluck the hair from a tiger's head. He's simply courting death. Er Kun sighed softly. We planned for so long and paid such a big price, but we didn't expect to work for others. Except for the cave guarded by the other great vicious Beast King, all the other treasures in the king's domain can't compare to this 3-leaf lemon soul grass. I will make him pay a heavy price. Er Luo's eyes were about to crack. Chapter 2471. Shua. Shua. Lin Feng jumped up and down a few times, and instantly stepped out of the king's domain. He wasn't stupid enough to be used as a target. As long as the 2 Black Eye race experts weren't stupid, they would definitely guess that he was the mastermind. Staying in the king's domain, not only would he be targeted by the Beast King, but he would also be chased by the 2 Black Eye race experts. Why bother? Let's find a quiet place to count my spoils of war first, then I can slowly plan. Lin Feng wasn't in a rush. The situation was tense, so it was better to hide first. The king's domain was here, and it wouldn't run away. Anyways, he was already late for so long that he didn't even see a single beast. The other treasures were probably all taken already, so it didn't matter if he was a bit late in exploring the king's domain. They should be angry and want to find trouble with me. Lin Feng smiled. Let's leave them alone first. Soon, Lin Feng found a relatively quiet place and activated the bone-piercing domain, covering himself with spatial energy to protect himself. Lin Feng then took out the 3-leaf lemon soul grass from the Qian Exalt Luo crystal and observed it carefully. A treasure worth 2,000 Qian Exalt points, comparable to a peak Heavenly Law treasure. One had to know that a normal peak Heavenly Law treasure was only 1,000 Qian Exalt points, and the Shattered Soul Kill book he got from Kabishan was only 1,800 Qian Exalt points. 2,000 Qian Exalt points was already the value of a peak Heavenly Law treasure. In the treasure domain, there were only a few peak Heavenly Law treasures in an epoch, but in the survival domain, there was a peak Heavenly Law treasure in the king's domain. This proved that the greater the danger, the greater the opportunity. If only I could exchange it for Qian Exalt points. In comparison, Lin Feng preferred Qian Exalt points, but the rule of the survival domain was that all the treasures here couldn't be traded openly or secretly. After all, these weren't treasures that were obtained with strength, but treasures that were given by sovereigns. The 3-leaf lemon soul grass wasn't bad, and it had 2 uses. The 3 leaves could increase one's soul control, and the main stem could increase one's soul quality. However, for such treasures, the less effective they were, the better. Like soul immortal grass, it only had one effect, which was to greatly increase the quality of one's soul. However, it was very direct and had a clear effect, so it was estimated to be above 10,000 Qian Zun points. Still, the 3-leaves soul grass is pretty good for me. Even if I get the soul immortal grass, the quality of my soul won't improve too much. Lin Feng gently stroked the 3-leaves soul grass, his soul slightly excited. He had the 10,000 origin mustard stone to nourish his soul, and its quality was already incomparably pure. The 3-leaf lemon soul grass wouldn't be able to improve the quality of his soul by much, and the same was true for the soul immortal grass. But at the very least, the 3-leaf lemon soul grass could increase his soul control. This was what he lacked at the moment. My soul control is still rather weak. Otherwise, I would have mastered the 9th level of the Kunling Heart Arrow long ago. By increasing my soul control, not only will it be easier to execute the 9th layer of the Kunling Heart Arrow, the burden on my body will also be smaller. Moreover, it will also increase the power of the Shattered Soul Kill Book and increase the offensive power of my trump card. Furthermore, some treasures that require soul control can also be used. Lin Feng nodded. Treasures that could increase one's foundation were usually the most valuable, because the foundation was irreversible. For example, the quality of the soul, the toughness of the body, the bloodline, the bones, etc., the improvement of the foundation was the best. It could be used in all aspects of battle. The 3-leaf lemon soulgrass was useful to any cultivator. Just the improvement of the quality of the soul was already very valuable. After all, this type of treasure was very rare. You could choose not to be proficient in soul attacks, but the universe was vast, and there were many experts who were proficient in soul attack. Increasing the quality of the soul would also increase the defensive power of the soul. Whoosh, Lin Feng swallowed and refined the soul. In the survival zone, every bit of improvement in strength counted. As soon as the soul entered his mouth, a sweet taste filled his heart and spread out. Instantly, the depths of his sea of consciousness trembled slightly. A tremor that came from the depths of his soul made his body feel comfortable. He was completely relaxed and comfortable like never before. It was as if his soul was immersed in the ocean of the universe, enjoying this wonderful moment. Nurture. Improve. The effect was not fast, and Lin Feng was not in a hurry. He immediately took out the Beast King's primordial core that he obtained from killing the 3 elephant-nosed beasts. The beautiful crystal was emitting a unique light. The time path secret technique was contained within, and it was wrapped in a layer of light origin energy. Pa! Lin Feng pressed on the crystal and refined it directly. Streams of vigorous energy wrapped around it. The primordial core shone brightly, as if the crystal had cracked from the inside. The Heaven Path secret technique that originated from the universe passed directly into his mind and was clearly imprinted in the depths of his memory. Sizzle, sizzle like a thin river, it flowed in his mind. The fusion of time and light, every origin point, every crystal, every intersecting pattern of the secret technique, every trace of the Heaven Path. The refining process was a process of absorbing and comprehending. It was the most direct and clear. The Time and Light Path secret technique. Combined with the Time Stop Heaven Path, the extreme speed of light, condensation and destructive power Lin Feng focused on refining. At this moment, he did not need to think too much about the Aurora Saber technique. Instead, he focused on comprehending the combination of time stop and light. He could unleash the light path, heavenly path, to a very strong level. After all, the 9 heavens of light and darkness was already the top nature path. What he lacked was the time path, heavenly path. It was how to use the time stop in the secret technique to complement the power of light. The time heavenly path is extremely compatible with the soul and is closely related. Lin Feng comprehended the time heavenly path and carefully tasted the essence of the heaven path secret technique. The stronger the soul's control, the stronger the time heavenly path would be. Space was compatible with the physical body. Time was compatible with the soul. So that's how it is. Oh, I seem to understand a little. What a wonderful time heavenly path. What a unique universe heavenly path secret technique. Lin Feng exclaimed as he refined and comprehended. The universe heavenly path secret technique was different from the secret techniques created by other supremacies. One was innate while the other was acquired. It was not that the acquired was inferior to the innate, but to comprehend the essence of the universe and the universe heavenly path, the innate was better. The path was the most direct and smoothest. Unhurriedly, Lin Feng cultivated alone in the secluded mountain forest. While refining the ominous beast's original core and comprehending the combination of time stop and light path heavenly path, he also absorbed the effects of the three leaves soul grass. The two complemented each other and the improvement was quite good. One was the sublimation of the essence of the soul, and the other was the improvement of the time heavenly path, bringing Aurora Saber technique more possibilities. If Aurora Saber technique can be integrated with the time stop heavenly path, its power will increase by more than one level. After refining the ominous beast's original core, Lin Feng could not wait to try it out. Chapter 2472. King's Domain. Luo and Kun were searching for Lin Feng's whereabouts. Although the two Beast King were following them, it didn't affect their movements. It didn't take much effort just to search. But they found nothing. Damn it, where did this human go? Luo was furious. The blood-stained armor on his body was given to him by the Beast King. There are three possibilities, Kun said. Said, either he was killed by the ferocious Beast King, or we didn't run into him, or he escaped the king's domain. On the last or, Kun emphasized his voice. It was obvious that this was his judgment. How could a cultivator who could plot against the Beast King and Peng and kill them both be killed by the Beast King? As for not meeting him, it was possible. After all, the king's domain was very big. It was normal not to meet him. But the biggest possibility was that this human had left the king's domain. This human is too cunning. Luo's one eye wrinkled violently. He was very angry. Kun said, he can think of going to the Beast King's nest and seeing the three of us. It's not difficult for him to infer that this king's domain has been swept clean by us. He won't get any benefits if he continues to stay. But then again, this is actually a good thing. A good thing? Luo was stunned. Yes. Kun had always been known for his calmness. His gaze was sharp. He has seen the three of us. If this human is much stronger than us and can kill the ferocious Beast King, he can naturally kill us and easily earn survival points. But he did not do so. Luo sneered. He wasn't stupid. Kun's meaning was simple and clear. If this human was very strong, he would have killed the two of them and wouldn't have left the king's domain in a hurry. The human's departure showed that he was guilty. He was avoiding the battle. Although he wasn't sure how strong this human was, he couldn't be too strong. So let him go, Kun said. Peng said, Peng has the death immortal puppet. It's just a matter of elimination. The most important thing now is to take the last treasure of this king's domain. Although the three-leaf soulgrass is precious, it's only guarded by 4 Beast Kings. That treasure is guarded by 6 Beast Kings. It's definitely a top-grade treasure. What do you mean? Luo's single eye sparkled. Please help. Kun said directly, we can't swallow this big cake with just the two of us. Let's find the brothers Erdu and Erkong. This. Luo hesitated. Kong said, Yi Xiuwen will definitely look for his elder brother. Yi Xiuwen is ranked 95th in the training camp. With our connections, we won't be able to invite an expert of this level. Erdu and Erkong are the strongest helpers we can find. Erluo nodded. One is ranked 257, and the other is ranked 318. They are proficient in the art of joint attacks. They should be able to contend against Yi Xiaokong. Alright, there's no time to lose. Let's contact them quickly. Erluo nodded heavily and made a decision. Outside the king's domain. No matter how Erluo and Kun guessed, it had nothing to do with Lin Feng. One-on-one, Lin Feng still had some confidence. One-on-two, Lin Feng knew that the possibility of defeat was too high. In addition, they had the Beast King chasing after them. There were too many variables. Once they were surrounded, it was no laughing matter. Without a certain degree of certainty, Lin Feng had no interest in provoking the two of them. Survival points were not what he was pursuing now. Lin Feng's blade seemed to stop in an instant, but in an instant, it appeared in the distance again. A terrifying power erupted in an instant, and the cave rumbled as it shattered. The white aurora seemed to disappear in the middle section. It was extremely strange. I have some feeling, but it's still very difficult to control. If I add time stop, it will slow down the speed of the blade. Lin Feng kept experimenting. He had already refined the original core of the Beast King and gained a lot of insight. For this kind of refinement, as long as one's comprehension was not ridiculously bad, one could basically understand most of it and reach the level of small success. However, there was still a long way to go before one could comprehend it to large success, perfection, or even perfection. But at the very least, small success was already a stage. One could use it and unleash its power. Therefore, the original core of the Beast King had its unique value there. Well, let's try again. Maybe the combination is not enough, or the level of understanding of the universe heavenly path secret technique is not enough. Maybe it's not enough with the first move? Lin Feng pondered. Now that he had just refined it, his comprehension was the most profound. Therefore, it was best to combine the blade moves and strike while the iron was hot. There was no need to rush to enter the king's domain. Anyway, he had already gotten what he needed. For what he could not get, there was nothing he could do for the time being. If I can comprehend it, I'll try my best to comprehend it. Lin Feng knew this best. The improvement of combat power was far more important than treasures. Time passed day by day. The rich feeling from refining the original core of the Beast King was gradually fading. However, taking advantage of this short period of time, Lin Feng did a good job of consolidating the universe heavenly path secret technique and getting a commission. The fusion with the blade moves was also gradually getting better. The speed of the saber was alternating between fast and slow. He was able to control the speed of the saber at will. It was a perfect achievement. The initial gap was long gone. After 30 days of comprehension, Lin Feng had comprehended the universe heavenly path secret technique from small success to large success. Even if he used it alone, it would have a certain amount of power. However, the real power was still in the blade move. The power has at least doubled. Especially when combined with the second and third moves, it's more useful than the first move. Combined with my soul, it's twice the result with half the effort. Swoosh. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. The 3-leaf lemon soul grass had increased his soul control by quite an astonishing amount. Because he had not specialized in this path, the increase was quite large. If he had cultivated it before, the increase would naturally be less. It was the same as the quality of the soul. The quality of the soul affected the success rate of the time heavenly path against the enemy. The control of the soul affected the combination of the time stopping heavenly path and the blade moves, and the percentage of power released. It's about time. My current combat power may not have reached the threshold of a venerable, but for those cultivators whose soul power is not as good as mine, it's equivalent to a venerable. As for the Beast King, I'll think about it when the time comes. Lin Feng was not afraid of the Beast King. Although they did not have souls and could not use soul attacks on them, his blade moves had improved a lot, and his combat power had strengthened a lot. Moreover, they did not have intelligence. What was there to be afraid of a group of creatures without intelligence? I wonder if the two Dark Eye clan experts have left. Lin Feng put away the war saber Dianu, jumped up from the valley, and rushed toward the king's domain. If they haven't left, then they're unlucky. Whoosh! Lin Feng was extremely fast and full of fighting spirit. Chapter 2473. Outside the king's domain. Not here yet. Luo sat cross-legged in the air, frowning. According to the map, it will take about 10 more days. Luo glanced at the god-slaying crystal in his left hand. It was made of the same material and technology as the hidden supremacy crystal, and its functions were similar. Luo snorted. You have the strength of a venerable, yet you're so timid. Why don't you just teleport here? Du and Ikang were ranked 257th and 318th in the God-slaying training camp. In the Hidden Supremacy training camp, this ranking was at the peak of the Divine Master realm, but in the God-slaying training camp, they had the strength of a venerable. They were comparable to the top 100 cultivators in the Hidden Supremacy training camp. Luo smiled and didn't say anything. He knew that Luo was just complaining. Who would dare to teleport in the survival zone? Even Trout Dragon and Taigen Deciduo were careful, let alone the Du and Ikang brothers. If it were Luo himself, he wouldn't teleport to fight for time. They're so timid, yet they want so much. Two bastards. Luo muttered. The word unhappy was written all over his face. But there was no other way. The last treasure in the king's domain was guarded by 6 Beast King. He and Luo didn't even dare to get close. 2 Beast King had already chased them to the brink of death, and they could only leave the king's domain to hide, not to mention 6 of them. If they were really surrounded, it was very likely that they would die. Alright, Luo, stop complaining. It's not bad that we can get 20%, Luo said. If the Du and Ikang brothers didn't come, we wouldn't even get 20%. It would take more than 10 years for other experts to come. It would waste too much time. Those 2 bastards got lucky. Luo's single eye flashed with displeasure. First, a human took advantage of us, and then those 2 bastards took advantage of us. We work so hard to find this king's domain. They eat the meat and we drink the soup. *CK. No matter how he thought about it, Luo was not happy about it. Kun sighed. That human is really cunning. He stole the 3 leaves soul grass right under our noses and even killed Ping. Lucky bastard. Luo said angrily. If he hadn't run away quickly, I would have torn him into pieces. Hee. A smile had just appeared on Kun's face when it suddenly froze like frost. Suddenly, a huge binding force came from beneath her body, condensing and flashing with the light of twilight. The space emitted a piercing sound, as if countless space blades were piercing through the bone marrow, making people shudder in fear. Domain. Boom. Luo reacted the quickest. He quickly took out his domain-type supreme treasure of the Way of the Heavens. The earth rumbled like thunder, and its power was monstrous. It was much more powerful than the twilight light. But at this moment the terrifying saber light seemed to have stopped time. The moment Luo took out his domain-type supreme treasure of the Way of the Heavens, it had already arrived. The white beam of light was extremely terrifying and its speed was astonishing. It was obviously saber light, but it shone like an aurora and covered everything. Time stop. Luo's expression changed drastically, and his reaction was not slow. The moment he broke the stillness, he quickly blocked it, but he was still caught off guard. With a bang, his arm went numb, and his whole body flew backward. Fortunately, Luo had excellent combat experience. He quickly distanced himself and protected himself with his domain-type supreme treasure of the Way of the Heavens. Although it was only a momentary exchange of blows, he already knew that the strength of the attacker was quite terrifying. However, the saber light was like an arrow that had left the bow. It only shot once and did not pursue and kill him when he distanced himself. Oh no! Ere Erluo had experienced countless battles, so he instantly understood. The opponent's target was not him. It was the slightly weaker Ere Kun. Damn it! Ere Erluo tried his best to control his supreme treasure of the way of the heavens. His body moved and quickly changed directions to enter the battle. However, no matter how fast his judgment was, he could not be faster than the opponent's saber. Chi! Chi! The white light shrouded him like a divine punishment. Lin Feng made a comeback with the brand new saber technique of Aurora. He killed Ere Kun with just 2 strikes. Although Ere Kun had used all his strength and even used his bloodline talent, his combat strength was inferior to Ere Erluo's. Moreover, he did not have a domain-type supreme treasure of the way of the heavens. In the end, he died tragically under the saber. The dead immortal puppet's eyes shone brightly and sent him out of the survival zone. Bang! Lin Feng blocked Ere Erluo's attack. The perished barbarian armor emitted a yellow light, and the special ability, Barbarian Block, was activated. It reduced 90% of the impact, and less than 10% of the impact was turned into power. The 4 layers of engravings of the War Saber Emperor's concealment shone, and the third heaven of light and darkness quickly erupted. In the void, Aurora was peaceful. Although Lin Feng's domain had been destroyed by Ere Erluo, he had absolute control of the way of the heavens. The last one. After killing Ere Peng and Ere Kun, only Ere Luo was left. He could not stop Lin Feng at all, although Lin Feng and Ere Luo's combat strength were almost the same based on the current ranking on the ranking list. The difference was that Ere Luo's strength did not improve after entering the survival zone. However, Lin Feng's strength had nearly doubled. The 3-leaved soul grass and the ominous original core had all turned into pure combat strength enhancement, making Lin Feng unstoppable. Now, he was not only ranked 975 on the ranking list. Chi! The saber light was like crescent moons, swallowing Ere Luo's defense. He only had the advantage of the domain. Without Ere Kun's help, Ere Luo could not stand alone and was seriously injured. Damn human! Just you wait. Ere Luo will come back for revenge. In the roar, Ere Luo's single eye emitted a bright light, like dozens of stars exploding at the same time. The terrible heat and light swallowed the entire area as if it had exploded. Bang! The impact was blocked by the perishing barbarian armor. Lin Feng tried his best to defend, but he was forced to retreat dozens of steps before he could stabilize himself. What a powerful talent! Lin Feng sighed in his heart. The 2 experts from the Dark Eye clan that he had killed before did not have such an ability, but this expert from the Dark Eye clan could use it. His aura had disappeared. He escaped again. Lin Feng had no choice. Although his combat strength was higher than his opponent's, it was not overwhelming. Unless he was able to break his unique skill, he could only sigh at the sight of the ocean. The elites of the God Slayer training camp are indeed not easy to kill. Lin Feng did not mind. If he really wanted to kill them, he could use the 9th level of the Kuan-Ling Heart Arrow. The success rate was over 99%. But there was no need. Killing them would only give him a few survival points. There was no hurry. The Dark Eye clan elite I just killed, 1320 survival points. Not bad. Lin Feng looked at his hidden exalt Luo Jing. Her survival points jumped to 3,770. He escaped with serious injuries. Even if he finds help, it will take a while. 10 days is enough for me to search through the King domain. Lin Feng did not care about Ere Luo, who had escaped. Besides, he could not chase after him. Sui Air had stepped into the King domain. Chapter 2474. Outside the King's domain, Ere Luo, who was covered in blood, was in a sorry state. There were clear blade marks on his armor, and the golden braid that symbolized the glory of the Dark Eye clan was dim. His single eye was covered in blood and had completely lost its vitality. His unique skill was indeed very strong, but it could only be used once and required a long time to recover. If he had any other choice, Luo would never use this move. Although he had the advantage of the domain, that human's blade technique was too terrifying, and he had a certain control over time. Every time he wanted to escape, the blade light would always flash at that moment, leaving him nowhere to run. Ah! Luo roared in anger. The 3 Dark Eye clan experts were actually played around by a human from the hidden Venerable training camp. 2 were dead and 1 was seriously injured. If this spread out, where would they put their faces? I will definitely take revenge for this. Luo gritted his teeth. He hated Lin Feng to the bone. His pair of bloodied fists were clenched tightly, and the sound of bones cracking could be heard. His single eye that had lost its vitality was even more twisted and ferocious. Just you wait, human. When Edu Ekong comes, I will tear you into pieces. Swish. Lin Feng once again stepped onto the glacier land. He was extremely familiar with it. The bone-piercing domain slowly spread out, and the transparent light condensed into the image of an ingot. Although he had just experienced a fierce battle, Lin Feng didn't actually lose too much energy, nor was he injured. Now, his battle strength was extremely close to the threshold of the Venerable realm. Although the Beast King's battle strength is comparable to the threshold of the Venerable realm, it is only comparable. After all, it lacks intelligence. With my current battle strength, I have a chance of winning in a one-on-one situation. Let's give it a try. Lin Feng himself was also eager to give it a try. The battle just now was far from his limit. Killing the ferocious Beast King earlier was just a stroke of luck. He had yet to kill a ferocious Beast King with his own strength. Sizzle, sizzle, beneath his feet, the domain spread out. Lin Feng looked around in the snowy glaciers, and his body moved quickly. Soon, this place is not bad. Lin Feng found a huge sunken valley and smiled. The war saber in his hand emitted a bright light. In an instant, beams of white light condensed and split open this area like splitting firewood. The size is about the same. Lin Feng looked at his work with satisfaction. A giant glacier cave appeared, but the entrance wasn't too big. It was only a third smaller than the cave where the clove soulgrass was hidden. In order to rest, he blocked the Beast King from entering? Of course not. If Lin Feng could destroy this glacier cave, then naturally the Beast King could do the same. Of the 2 ferocious Beast King that chased after the Black-Eyed clan, one of them flew in the air and had the talent of the Space Heavenly Way, while the other had 3 heads and spewed lightning from its mouth. It had the talent of the Thunder Heavenly Way. Their sizes are about the same. They're both 1 inch smaller than the 3-trunked Beast King. Only one can enter this glacier cave at a time. Lin Feng thought to himself. It was obvious that the 2 powerhouses of the Black-Eyed clan couldn't have killed the 2 ferocious Beast King. Moreover, the place where he found them was outside the king's domain. It was enough to prove that they had temporarily left the king's domain to avoid the Beast King. In other words, the 2 ferocious Beast King were still in the king's domain. Moreover, they must not be far from here. He didn't need to deliberately look for them. The domain effect of the king's domain would naturally tell the ferocious Beast King where he was. 1 against 2, he had to run. But 1 against 1, I can take them down. Lin Feng was confident in his current combat strength. Moreover, his saber technique needed this kind of head-on battle to stimulate, improve, and comprehend a deeper level. The ferocious Beast King in the king's domain was undoubtedly the best target to practice his saber. Standing with his saber in hand, Lin Feng waited calmly. His fighting spirit continued to improve during meditation and waiting. His saber comprehension reached its peak at this moment. The previous comprehension outside the king's domain was constantly poured into his mind. He simulated Aurora's saber technique again and again, from the first move to the fifth move, from the small success to the large success, from the large success to perfection, and from perfection to perfection. The third layer of light and darkness, the heavenly way of conception, the heavenly way of chaos, and the time stop. In his mind, there seemed to be a phantom constantly performing, accompanied by the appearance of the heavenly way of conception. It was as beautiful as a picture scroll, exquisite to the extreme and incomparable. Suddenly, whoosh! Lin Feng opened his eyes, which were as sharp as a saber. The earth shook violently and lightning flashed. A terrifying aura came from afar, and the space seemed to crack. The roar was like thunder, and the pressure of the aura seemed to crush the entire glacier valley. They're here. The two ferocious Beast King had finally come. Chi. The one in the lead was the three ferocious lightning-type Beast King. Before its body entered, lightning exploded and bombarded the glacier cave. It had 6 hooves and 6 claws, and it was like the combination of the three ferocious Beast King. Its combat strength was formidable. Lightning was an extremely powerful offensive heavenly way of conception. Clang! Lin Feng blocked and did not attack. Now was not the time to attack. The perished barbarian armor emitted a yellow light, and the barbarian block effect was activated. Lin Feng took the bombardment of the lightning balls in the cave, and his body crashed into the walls of the cave again and again. Although the perished barbarian armor weakened more than 90%, the power was still quite terrifying. However, compared to close-range attacks, long-range attacks were still inferior. Rumble! The mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. The 3 lightning attribute giant ferocious Beast Kings rushed into the glacier cave. They could not wait any longer. Outside the cave, the black bat giant ferocious Beast King, who was adept at spatial attacks, let out an ear-piercing sound, but it was blocked outside and could not enter. The glacier cave was collapsing and being destroyed. However, the 2 ferocious Beast King that did not have intelligence would naturally not wait for the glacier cave to be completely destroyed before entering together, because they did not have the ability to assess the enemy's strength. No matter who it was, the ferocious Beast King would attack. I'm finally in. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. The 5th level of the War Saber Emperor's concealment had been activated. Previously, when he fought with the Black Eye Clan, he had only activated the 4th level of the War Saber Emperor's concealment. Now, the power of the War Saber Emperor's concealment had greatly increased. Combined with the time and space Heavenly Ways inscriptions, it contained extremely powerful attack power. Facing the thunder attribute ferocious Beast King that was roaring like thunder and clawing at the sky, Lin Feng did not dodge. He faced it head-on like a humanoid ferocious Beast King. Boom! Boom boom! Boom boom boom! Every attack cast Lin Feng's understanding of the saber technique. During the attack, he was constantly forcing himself in desperate situations. Of the first 5 moves of the Aurora saber technique, only the first 2 moves were perfectly comprehended, and they were combined with time stop. However, Lin Feng also mastered the last 3 moves very well, and they were all completed. Whoosh! The saber force filled the glacier cave. At the same time, the saber light mixed with straight and curved beams covered the cave densely. It divided into 5 like a full moon and attacked the 3 ferocious Beast King at the same time. Lin Feng's combat strength reached the peak. Aurora Saber Technique's 3rd move, Aurora, Full Moon. Chapter 2475. Aurora's Way of the Heavens had reached the limit. Lin Feng's blade technique had also found a crucial point in his battle with the lightning-type ferocious Beast King. The most direct confrontation was the essence of Aurora's 3rd move, Full Moon. Fierce, fierce, powerful. The blade light split into 5, and the strongest was undoubtedly the one in the middle. However, the 2 on the left and right were not to be underestimated. Their speed intertwined, forming a perfect resonance. The beautiful arc and afterimage of the blade light formed a full moon. Boom, 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 boom. Lin Feng's attack finally gained the upper hand. He blasted apart the 3 thunder-type ferocious beast kings, especially the 2 heads on the left and right. The head in the middle had already been weaker than the head in the first place, but it had each taken 2 blows from the blade and was immediately heavily injured. Roar! The 3 thunder element beast king was injured and became even more furious. At this moment, the space behind it was constantly being torn apart, and a faint strangling attack was attacking Lin Feng. Came from the black bat beast king. Its body was not any smaller than the 3 thunder element beast king, especially its huge black wings, which covered the sky like palm leaf fans. Beasts will always be beasts. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. His fighting spirit had reached its peak. Another full moon was blasted out from his hand. Compared to the previous attack, it was even stronger. The 5-blade light had even increased to 7. Aurora's control over the full moon was gradually becoming more perfect. It could still be improved. It's the 3 leaves soul grass. Lin Feng knew it clearly. The increase in his soul control had also increased with this move. Back then, when he had comprehended and created the Aurora full moon, 5 blade lights had already been his limit. Now, even with 7 blade lights, he still hadn't reached his limit. Puff! Puff! The left and right heads of the 3 thunder element beast king exploded. Blood splattered everywhere. The attack power of these 2 heads was not inferior to the middle head at all. They were even more powerful, but their defense was not even half of the middle head's. When Lin Feng used Aurora full moon for the second time, even though the concept of the way of the heavens did not change, the saber gleams that struck the 2 heads turned from 2 to 3 at the same time. It was equivalent to a 50% increase in power. The 2 heads were already injured and could not resist anymore. It's over. The remaining blade flashes, along with the endless chaos force, crushed the 3 thunder-type pharaoh kings that were at the end of their tether. Even so, Lin Feng did not have the time to rest. As it fell, the glacial cavern opened wide, and the space around it froze for an instant. Bang! That was the sound of space being torn apart. His eardrums seemed to have been shattered. The Blackbat Dire Beast King had been waiting for a long time. Beams of spatial light shot out and tore through the void. This was the innate ability bestowed by the universe. It had powerful spatial control, and its long-range attack was more than twice as powerful as the 3 Thunder-type Dire Beast Kings. No wonder the 3 Dark Eyes clan powerhouses were chased to the ends of the earth. Lin Feng retreated to the depths of the cave. The light emitted by the War Sword Emperor's invisibility was combined with the perished barbarian armor to resist. The 3 Thunder Element Beast King were good at close combat. The Black Bat Beast King was good at sneak attacks, long-distance attacks, and space control. Their cooperation was flawless. Even now, he could not gain any advantage in a 1 versus 2 situation. But 1 versus 1 was different. Once you're in, don't think about leaving. Lin Feng smiled. The Beast King's intelligence was too low. It only knew how to kill, and did not even know how to make use of the basic geographical advantage. The 3 Thunder-type ferocious Beast Kings from before were barely able to unleash their full combat strength in this narrow cavern. However, this Black Bat Beast King, who was good at sneak attacks and long-distance attacks, entered the narrow cave. Its combat power was greatly reduced. Aurora, full moon. The same 7 saber lights blasted toward the Blackbat Dire Beast King. A clearer full moon appeared. The 7 blade lights blasted toward the Blackbat Beast King's body. Although several of them were dispersed by its space and their power was greatly reduced, the Blackbat Beast King's physical body was not stronger than the 3 Thunder Element Beast King. 1 hit had already injured it. Cut! The ear-piercing sound rang again. The Blackbat Beast King launched a frenzied attack. Sharp blades in the shape of space ripples tore toward Lin Feng. It did not run away. As a beast king, it naturally would not run away. In the eyes of the ferocious beast kings, there was nothing but slaughter. Killing the opponent in front of them with all their might was their belief. However, the gap in their close combat ability was huge. Die. The entire glacier cave was filled with the beautiful Aurora. Lin Feng, who had fought 2 Beast King consecutively, was also injured. However, his fighting spirit was at its peak, and his combat power was constantly increasing. His soul control was at its peak. The powerful effect of the 3 leaves soul grass was completely revealed at this moment, although it was not a soul attack. The perfect full moon was formed by 9 blade lights. The white light enveloped the black bat beast king and tore it into pieces with a shrill and ear-piercing cry. Pung! 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 Lin Feng himself was struck by the black bat dire beast king's attack to the point that his internal organs were in turmoil. His body slammed into the wall of the cave like a shooting star. He clutched his chest and staggered slightly before he stood up with a bitter smile. These ferocious beast kings are truly insane. They are not afraid of death. They are also very powerful. Lin Feng sighed softly. If the Dark Eye Clan's elite was also like this, he would have been seriously injured. However, he cherished his life. He only used his unique talent to escape, so he did not suffer any injuries. However, the Beast King was different. It did not know the concept of death. Its only thought was to kill him. However, it failed. Chi. Lin Feng took the 2 survival crystals and obtained 2 precious ferocious prime cores at the same time. They were of the same quality as the one he had refined before. Moreover, the ferocious prime core of the Blackbat Dire Beast King was very suitable for him. The space-tearing attack is very compatible with the 4th move of my Aurora Blade technique, Aurora, Viper, and the 5th move, Aurora, Mad Dragon. Lin Feng was very satisfied. He did not intend to use the Beast Core to become a venerable for the time being. The main purpose of refining and understanding Time Stop was to increase his combat strength and integrate it with his blade technique. It was the same now. Lin Feng directly refined the Black Bat Beast King's Beast Core. At the same time, he kept the other Beast Core. He sat cross-legged in the glacier cave and began to cultivate. Because the Beast Core itself contained a huge amount of energy, it was the best fruit of heaven and earth for recovery. Although he had won the battle, he had suffered heavy injuries. If it were not for the fact that these 2 Beast King did not have intelligence and only knew how to fight recklessly, he would only be able to escape when fighting 2 against 1. Their combat strength had indeed reached the threshold of a venerable. It was just that they were less flexible and had more weaknesses. As for himself, being able to defeat them face-to-face also meant that his combat strength had increased to the threshold of a venerable. Chapter 2476. Not long after he recovered, Lin Feng left the glacier cave. He could refine the original core at any time. He could continue refining it while he was searching. If he was in a fight, the refining would naturally stop. Time was of the essence. Lin Feng wouldn't waste precious time cultivating in the king's domain. At least not for now. Moreover, even if he completely refined the Blackbat Beast King's original core, he would only be able to comprehend it. There was still a long way to go before he could fuse it with Aurora. He would need a long time to cultivate in seclusion before he could truly increase his combat power. Searching for treasures. Although this king's domain was most likely searched, it was inevitable that there would be some that he missed. The search of the 3 Dark Eyes clan elites was carried out under the pursuit of the ferocious Beast King. It's very likely that they missed something. Lin Feng released his bone-piercing domain and searched everything within its range. He could activate his domain without limit and wasn't afraid of energy consumption, but the 3 Black-Eyed clan elites couldn't. They needed to conserve energy to fight. When he first met them, they didn't release their domains. They were searching with their eyes and auras. It was inevitable that there would be some that slipped through. The 3-leaved soul grass was one of them. Actually, in terms of value, this three-leaved soulgrass is probably more valuable than the treasures they found in every corner of the king's domain. Their luck is really bad. Lin Feng searched carefully. It would be good if he could find treasures, but it didn't matter if he couldn't. The three-leaved soulgrass was already worth the price. Although the king's domain was big, it was just a grain of sand compared to the survival domain. Searching with a domain, the small one can finish searching in a day or two. The large one can only take 8 to 10 days. After all, it's not a king's domain. Among the top AI, there was general information about the king's domain and king's domain. The largest king's domain was less than 10% of the smallest king's domain. The value of the treasures was the same. After all, there were 10,800 king's domains in the survival domain, and only 108 king's domains. The black-eyed clan elite that escaped will most likely look for help. However, it won't be easy to find someone who can deal with me. After all, they definitely won't have many friends. Moreover, I will only stay here for at most 10 days. With the distance of the survival realm, the chances of reaching this king's domain within 10 days are very slim. Lin Feng was not worried. Counter-soldiers with arms and water with an earth weir. The efficiency of the search was also very fast. In just a few days, they had turned the area around the three-leaf soulgrass cave upside down. With the use of his domain, the efficiency of the search was naturally much higher. They really took everything clean. Nothing was left behind. Lin Feng wasn't surprised, so he went to the other side. During these days of exploring the king's domain, he discovered that the king's domain was divided into two parts, just like the Chu and Han kingdoms. Although the experts of the Black-Eyed clan had completely explored this side, the other side might not be the same. Sure enough, on the second day of exploration, they found something. It was a black oval sphere with star-shaped engravings. The two ends of the sphere contained space energy. Inside the sphere, there was a shocking power of lightning that seeped out. A control-type treasure. A top-tier Heaven's Path treasure, lightning type. The space energy is only supplementary, so its value shouldn't be too high. 150 Qian Zun points. Lin Feng held it in his hand and observed it for a while before putting it into the Qian Zun Luo crystal. As expected, the top-tier AI gave an estimate of 160 Qian Zun points. Compared to the three-leaf soulgrass, it was a lot worse. However, this was a treasure that wasn't protected by the Beast King, so it was basically free. Even if he exchanged it for the training camp, he could still get 80 Qian Zun points. Not long later, Lin Feng found something else. This time, it was a mechanical-type treasure, estimated at 100 Qian Zun points, which was a bit less. Just like what the top-tier AI said, treasures that can be found outside usually aren't too valuable. Lin Feng took the time to explore the other half of the king's domain. From the progress of the treasures, they must have been here before. Lin Feng thought to himself. Although they had been here before, it was obvious that they didn't search as carefully as the other half of the king's domain. Why? Not enough time? Or is there another reason? Lin Feng was also curious. With the abilities of the god-slaying training camp's cultivators, it shouldn't be a matter of time. Otherwise, the first time he met them wouldn't have been in the other half of the king's domain. So, there are secrets in this half of the king's domain that I haven't discovered yet? Thinking of this, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The originally dull exploration suddenly became full of interest. The piercing bone domain once again expanded its exploration range. Lin Feng kept going deeper and deeper, waiting for the mystery to be solved. He didn't have to wait for long. After all, the king's domain was only so big. With Lin Feng's speed and the piercing bone domain's exploration efficiency, he soon reached the center of the king's domain and found the core that affected the Dark Eye race's powerhouses. It was a glacial fortress that took up an astonishing amount of space. It was like a tiger looking at its prey, like a ferocious beast making people shudder. Hiss! Hoot! Before he got close, two ferocious beast kings scuttled out of the huge glacial fortress. One of them was completely golden, with a pair of wings on its back, like a flying tiger. However, there were three sharp spiral horns on its forehead. The other was a black and white flood dragon. It rolled over from the ground in a snake-like manner. The friction between its body and the glacier made an unpleasant sound, as if it was scraping against glass. Its scarlet tongue flicked wildly, and its sharp teeth seemed as if they could pierce through everything. Run! Lin Feng reacted instantly. If he didn't run now, he would die here. It wasn't just these two beast king. He also sensed four other auras in the huge glacial fortress. However, unlike these two beast king, they were guarding the fortress. It was already very difficult for him to deal with two beast king. If two more came, he would be finished. Not to mention how terrifying it would be if 6 ferocious beast kings attacked together. No wonder the Dark Eye race's powerhouses haven't explored everything here. So that's how it is. Lin Feng now understood. It wasn't that he didn't want to explore, but that the situation didn't allow it. The Beast King here was even more ferocious than the Beast King on the other side, and there were even more of them. 6 Beast King guarding it. What kind of treasure is inside the glacial fortress? Lin Feng turned into a rainbow and quickly left the glacial fortress. He looked at it from the corner of his eyes, and his curiosity grew. In the king's domain, the more Beast King guarding a treasure, the more precious the treasure was. How could something guarded by 6 ferocious Beast Kings be ordinary? Take it. Lin Feng's eyes flashed with fighting spirit and desire. Chapter 2477. Outside the king's domain, on a red hill, Erluo's long golden braid fluttered in the wind. His wrinkled single eye emitted a faint light, and his aura was hidden. He seemed a little weak. They're here. Erluo's single eye widened, and the blood-red color was a little distorted. The space in front of him fluctuated, and 2 figures about 3 meters tall appeared. They had spikes on their backs and long silver tails that were covered in terrifying space engravings. On their green faces, there was a pair of slightly protruding eyes. Each of their hands had 10 fingers that were as sharp as knives. The Chia clan had the talent of space, and their speed was extremely shocking. It was the 2 brothers, Erdu and Ikang. In the deicide training camp, Erdu and Ikang were ranked 257th and 318th respectively. They were comparable to the top 100 cultivators in the Hidden Zone training camp. Both of them had the combat power of a venerable. What was truly terrifying was that they were twins and had a tacit understanding of each other. Once they worked together, their combat power was comparable to a real venerable. You're the only one left? Erdu looked at Erluo and said in a rough voice. We were surrounded by the Beast King, Erluo said through gritted teeth. He naturally wouldn't tell Erdu and Ikang that Rock and Kong had died at the hands of a human in the Hidden Zone training camp. It would be too embarrassing if this spread out. Ha ha ha! Ikang's laughter was a little hoarse, as if he was mocking him. Erluo's expression was a little ugly, but he didn't say anything. Dying at the hands of the Beast King was nothing. There were many in the survival domain, and not all cultivators were as strong as Erdu and Ikang. We want 90%, Erdu said directly. What? Erluo's eyes widened and he was instantly furious. Ikang said calmly, Anyway, even if you don't tell us the location, it's nearby. We can find it ourselves. Don't go too far. Erluo gritted his teeth. Erdu said, We agreed to give you and Ikang 10% each. Now that Ikang isn't here, his 10% naturally belongs to us. The 2 brothers said this as if it was a matter of course. They weren't worried that Erluo wouldn't agree. The training camp was like this, and the strong preyed on the weak. Now that Erluo had a favor to ask of them, 10% was already merciful enough. Erluo was so angry that his veins bulged. If he had known that Edu and Ikang were greedy, he would have asked for 80% of the share. He did not expect that they would be even greedier now and ask for as much as 90%. Good. I promise you. Luo swallowed his teeth and said, "Let me remind you that there are 2 other cultivators in the king's domain. One of them is Yi Xiuan." Yi Xiuan? Yi Kong was slightly startled. He recognized Yi Xiuan, whose strength was about the same as Luo's. But most importantly, Yi Xiuan had a super-strong big brother. Yi Xiuting ranked 95th on the ranking board. Even if Du and Yi Kong joined forces, they were not confident that they could defeat Ye Xiuting. "Don't worry, it's just him," Luo said coldly. "Even if Yi Xiushang is here, it's nothing." Edu's voice was rough as he said in a low voice, "Us 2 brothers do not fear him." "Oh right, aren't there 2 cultivators? Since the other one isn't Yi Xiuting, who is it?" "A human from the hidden Zun training camp." Luo deliberately played it down. As expected, Du did not care. His expression relaxed a bit. "Top 100? No, he's very unfamiliar," Luo said. "It's just that we were chased by the ferocious beast king at the time and had no time to pay attention to him." Du nodded. "Just kill him if you see him." "All right, stop talking nonsense." Yi Kong crossed his arms. He could not wait any longer. "Can you lead the way? Follow me." Luo glanced at Du and Yi Kong and then sped off. 10% was 10%. It was better than nothing. At least, if they could get rid of that damned human, that 10% would be the reward for Du and Yi Kong. A light flashed through Luo's eyes. King's domain. Lin Feng was fighting 1 against 2, fighting and retreating. The 2 ferocious beast king and the golden-winged flying tiger were extremely fast. The changes in direction they glided in the air were also quite shocking. The black and white flood dragon's skin was rough and its flesh was hard. The surface of its body was filled with chaotic power. Unlike before, these 2 ferocious beast king were close combat type. Fortunately, there are no beast king types like the black bat ferocious. Lin Feng blocked the tail whip of the black and white flood dragon. The perished barbaric armor protected his body. He instantly changed his position and pulled away. The black bat ferocious beast king's attack had an extremely strong spatial binding ability and contained a spatial tier attack. Once they worked together with a close combat type ferocious beast king in a large area, their strength would at least double again and again. However, the cooperation of 2 close combat type ferocious beast kings was clearly inferior. Even if their close combat types were different. Aurora, full moon. 7 blade lights went straight for the golden-winged flying tiger. 2 of them attacked the black and white flood dragon. Although they did not cause much damage to it, they could stop it for a moment. The black and white flood dragon's attack range was wider, but its speed was not as fast as the golden-winged flying tiger. However, even without the treasure of the king's domain, this black and white flood dragon must be killed. Because its ferocious original core was a priceless treasure. It was extremely useful. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Lightning and thunder intertwined, piercing through space. The golden-winged flying tiger's attacks were mainly based on the heavenly Tao of thunder, with space as a supplement. Its attacks were less flexible and more powerful. If it was the previous Lin Feng, he would have been wary of it. However, the current Lin Feng's attack power was not inferior to the golden-winged flying tigers. Boom! Boom! The war saber emitted a brilliant white light. Before the black and white flood dragon's attack arrived, he used his strongest attack to attack the golden-winged flying tiger. Neither of them had an advantage over the other, but it was the most direct method. Roar! The golden-winged flying tiger's blood splattered. It was instantly injured. But at this moment, the black and white flood dragons had already arrived. Terrifying power condensed on the black and white tail whip. The innate Hundun body unleashed the full power of the great success realm of the chaotic force and sent Lin Feng flying with one strike. Swoosh! Lin Feng fled again. Behind him was the golden-winged flying tiger, who was furious and had just finished attacking the black and white flood dragon. He pulled away and attacked the golden-winged flying tiger. He pulled away and attacked again. Lin Feng's attacks maintained a certain frequency. Before he knew it, he had already severely injured the golden-winged flying tiger. Facing the encirclement of the two ferocious beast king, Lin Feng did not flee like the other three. Instead, he killed one of them with his saber. Chi, 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 chi. 9 saber lights pierced through the golden-winged flying tiger's body, shattering its golden wings. Its eyes lost their luster and it fell heavily to the ground. The black and white flood dragon behind him charged forward. Its attacks were monstrous. It did not seem sad or hesitant at all because of the golden-winged flying tiger's death. "Do you really think I'm afraid of you?" Lin Feng's mouth was stained with blood, but his eyes were full of fighting spirit. After killing the golden-winged flying tiger, he could finally settle the score with the black and white flood dragon that had injured him. Chapter 2478. It's this one. Lin Feng took out a small crystal ball the size of a fingernail from the black and white flood dragon's body. It was full of energy and pure color. It was a magical crystal of the universe. This giant vicious original core was different from the other giant vicious original cores. It did not have any special nomological energy. Instead, it was filled with a barbaric power of the universe, like the beginning of chaos. Mixed strength heavenly Tao. Lin Feng's eyes were clear as he refined it directly. Although he already had one giant vicious original core in his body, it was not a problem. He could refine both at the same time, and he could freely choose which one to refine in his body. Of course, both were very important. The previous one contained the spatial tier heavenly Tao, and the current one contained the great success mixed strength heavenly Tao. No matter which one it would be of great help to his current combat strength. Recover first. Lin Feng refined the giant vicious original core with all his strength. Abundant energy flowed through his body, repairing the damage from the previous battle. The giant vicious original core was the best treasure for healing. In the King domain, because of the existence of the domain itself, his location was completely transparent to the senses of every giant vicious beast. Therefore, he had to be ready for battle at any time. Lin Feng did not think that the remaining 4 giant vicious beast king would give up the treasure to chase after him. But in fact, he hoped that they would appear here. If all 4 of them are guarding the treasure, I'm afraid there won't be a chance. Lin Feng released the bone-piercing domain to sense the surroundings, but there were no traces of the giant vicious beast king. With their speed, they should have arrived by now. But they did not appear. It's a little troublesome. Lin Feng felt a headache. It was already very difficult for him to fight 1 against 2, and it was even more impossible for him to fight 1 against 3. As for fighting 1 against 4, it was completely asking for trouble. No matter how weak the giant vicious beast king was, with its talent and ability, it was at the threshold of the venerable realm. It was just that to cultivators they might have different fighting styles. Some just happened to counter each other, while others were countered. I'll take a look when I get closer. I'll see if each giant vicious beast king has a weakness, if I can defeat them one by one, and if there's anything I can take advantage of that glacier fortress. Where there was a will, there was a way. Although Lin Feng felt a headache, he still had a certain amount of confidence. After all, he was much stronger now. He could kill the great vicious beast king 1-on-1. Even if it was 1-on-2, he could still kill them if he was lucky. If he was prepared for the worst, he could just train hard for another 10 or 20 years. When his strength reached a higher level, it wouldn't hurt to try again. If he couldn't break in, the chances of other cultivators breaking in were similarly slim. Recover. The primordial ominous original core was brimming with energy, and it quickly repaired Lin Feng's body. With the perfect chaotic body, Lin Feng already possessed an outstanding recovery ability. Now, it was only natural that he could recover twice as fast with half the effort. Retracing his steps, Lin Feng stood in the air, gazing at the behemoth-like glacier fortress in the distance. There was still some distance between them. He was unable to sense the aura of the Beast King within the glacier fortress, but he was very clear that there were still 4 Beast Kings within the glacier fortress, guarding a top-grade treasure. We're so close. Why aren't they chasing after us? Lin Feng was secretly apprehensive. He slowly moved closer to the glacier fortress. He had already killed the 2 Beast Kings that had been guarding outside the fortress. The remaining 4 Beast Kings were all within the fortress, as if they were hiding in their turtle shells. 10,000 meters, 1,000 meters, 100 meters, swoosh. Lin Feng stood 10 meters away from the glacier fortress. With his naked eye, he could even see the primordial Beast King resting within the glacier fortress. Its entire body was covered in gray armor, and its sharp thorns stood straight. However, it was indifferent, as if treating Lin Feng as air. Naturally, it was impossible for them not to sense him. Not to mention this short distance, even if he had just entered the King domain, they would still be able to clearly sense him. There was only one reason for their lack of reaction. The restrictions set by the rules. They only have one duty, which is to protect the treasure. It seems that I will only have a chance to obtain the treasure if I enter the glacier fortress. Lin Feng was also hesitant. If he entered, he would have to face 4 Beast Kings that were no weaker than him. With his current strength, it was impossible for him to obtain the treasure from the 4 Beast Kings and escape unscathed. I'll think of another way. Lin Feng was not rash. Even with the death immortal puppet, he only had one chance to enter the survival domain. His biggest goal was to surpass Huang Qinyan and become the first on the rookie rankings, not to obtain the treasure. Circling the glacier fortress, Lin Feng's figure constantly moved as he searched for a way. There are 2 entrances. The 2 Beast Kings from before are located at 2 different entrances. I rushed in too quickly. If not, I could lure one at a time. It would be easier to deal with them. At the entrance of the glacier fortress, the 2 poles faced each other. One was in the east and the other was in the west. The ice surface was pure white and smooth. Through the entrance, he could see the other Beast King's appearance. It was quietly resting within the huge fortress. Judging from the size of the entrance, they can't actually come out. Lin Feng's war saber emperor vaguely appeared in his hand. The 5 layers of seals were directly opened. His eyes flashed and a beautiful aurora condensed in the void. It was like a painting unfolding, instantly enveloping the huge fortress. Boom! The strongest aurora, full moon slammed 9 saber energies on the beast-like fortress at the same time. However, the glacier fortress was not damaged at all, let alone shaking. There was not even a trace of damage. Its defense far exceeded the saber technique's strongest attack. There seems to be a magical power protecting it. It's very strange. Is it because this is the land of the treasure? Lin Feng sneered. The matter in a normal king domain should be able to be destroyed. At the very least, an attack would leave a trace. But this glacier fortress was invulnerable. If I enter and successfully obtain the treasure in the center of the glacier fortress, I will have to face the attacks of the 4 Beast Kings. The entrance is the same as the exit. There are only 2. 2 Beast Kings can easily seal them off. The chances of breaking through by force were slim. Now, he could be sure that the inside of the glacier fortress was different from the outside. With the size of the 4 Beast Kings, they couldn't come out of the glacier fortress, let alone attack. The 2 Beast Kings that were a real threat had already been killed by him. As for the rest, if he didn't obtain the treasure, he would be safe. After pacing back and forth for a long time, Lin Feng still couldn't think of a good way to get the best of both worlds. Everything seemed to be a bit difficult. Phew! Lin Feng let out a long breath and shook his head. His figure flashed and immediately left the glacier fortress. Since he couldn't figure it out, he put it aside for the time being. He hadn't properly explored this half of the king domain. While exploring it completely and seeing if there were any treasures left, he would think of a way. Perhaps success would follow naturally. Lin Feng smiled. At least, he didn't feel any pressure. Chapter 2479. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Lin Feng started a thorough search in this half of the king's domain. As soon as he entered this half, he had already obtained 2 treasures. This gave Lin Feng reason to believe that there were more treasures here. In fact, this was indeed the case. The 2 sides of the king's domain were clearly separated. One side had 4 Beast King, while the other had 6 Beast King. Neither side would cross the boundary. That day, the Black Eye Race's Air Luo's group had come here, but before they could search carefully, they had approached the glacier fortress. They had been chased by the 2 Beast King Golden-Winged Flying Tiger and the Black and White Flood Dragon. They had escaped to the other side of the king's domain to escape danger. After that, they had searched in that half of the king's domain. After all, the glacier fortress had 6 Beast King Luos, which was not something they could reach. Therefore, this half of the king's domain still had a lot of treasures left. Lin Feng quickly found something. In addition to treasures, he had even encountered a few Beast Kings. He had accumulated 11 life crystals. As for the Beast King's original core, Lin Feng didn't care about it. He used it as a recovery-type fruit of heaven and earth. As expected, the king's domain is the biggest treasure in the survival realm. Lin Feng put away another treasure and smiled with satisfaction. He released the bone-piercing domain without restraint. Nothing could be hidden in its path. If I can enter the king's domain, my harvest will be even better. Lin Feng was also looking forward to it. After all, there were only 108 king's domains in the survival realm. The treasures there were at least 10 times more valuable than the king's domain. Even the number of Beast King Luos in the king's domain was more than the king's domain, not to mention the existence of the strongest Beast King. Entering the survival realm but not being able to enter the king's domain and see the Beast King, wouldn't it be a pity? Let's see if I have the luck. No matter what, I have to first take all the treasures in this king's domain. Whoosh, whoosh. Lin Feng's figure constantly changed. His speed was astonishing. Just as Lin Feng was plundering the remaining treasures of the king's domain, the 2 brothers, Du and Ikang, had already entered the glacial land under Air Erluo's lead. The 2 brothers were very knowledgeable and had passed through no less than 10 king's domains, so they knew the general situation as soon as they entered. You've really cleaned everything out, Erlo. Du looked around. Air Luo said, we took half of it, and the other half was taken by Yi Xiuwen. But even so, it's not as valuable as the 2 most precious treasures here. One of them is the 3 leaves soul grass. 3 leaves soul grass? Ikang's eyes lit up. It's gone, Air Erluo said. Edu frowned. You got it? Air Erluo shook his head. No. Erkong snorted disdainfully. So be it. What's there to hide? We won't rob you. Air Erluo glanced at Ikong. Since you also know that you can't snatch it, why should I hide it? But it's true that the 3 leaves soul grass did not fall into our hands. Someone else got it before us. Du nodded. He knew that Air Erluo had no reason to lie. It was meaningless. Did you see the most precious treasure? Du asked. Air Erluo shook his head. Before we could get close, we were chased by 2 ferocious Beast King. There are 4 Beast King guarding the fortress. If we could get it, we wouldn't have to look for you 2 brothers. The corners of Ikang's mouth curled up proudly. He and Du could both kill a ferocious Beast King in a one-on-one battle. Let's deal with the 2 outside first, Air Erluo said to Ikong. The latter nodded. After entering the fortress, will you be okay alone, big brother? Du said. If it's as Erluo said, there are only 4 Beast King and no other variables, it won't be a big problem. For the time being, the 4 Beast King can't do anything to me. As expected of big brother. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to do it. Ikong laughed. 1 against 4, he was still confident. Erlo looked at Ikong with some admiration in his eyes. If he had this strength, he would have gotten the 3-leaf soul grass long ago. He wouldn't have been chased by a human boy and had to use his ultimate talent and lose face. How far? Ikong asked. Very soon, Erlo replied as he sped. Ikong nodded and followed closely behind. In the boundless desert, a black crack tore through space. Sizzle sizzle instantly, it twisted and a short figure appeared. He was covered in a pitch-black color and had a pair of black butterfly-like wings on his back. He looked particularly delicate, but his aura was unusually strong. He was a super-strong fighter of the deicide training camp. Yi Xiaokong ranked 95th. Unlike the top 100 cultivators of the hidden venerable training camp, the top 100 cultivators of the deicide training camp often had strong combat power comparable to a venerable. Swoosh! 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 The space fluctuated violently. Yi Xiaokong kept teleporting forward. Although the desert in the survival zone was huge, teleporting was much faster than flying. He soon crossed the desert. Teleporting was very dangerous, but it varied from person to person. Some super-strong fighters had the strength and confidence to do so. Under normal circumstances, Yi Xiaokong wouldn't risk teleporting. But now that it was related to the Emperor Domain, it was different. This was his 3rd time in the survival zone, but he had never seen an Emperor Domain. Emperor Domain is different from King Domain. King Domain can be found, but Emperor Domain can only be triggered. Only by triggering certain conditions can one find one of the 108 Emperor Domains. The harsher the conditions, the higher the grade of the Emperor Domain, and the more valuable the treasure. This Emperor Domain is connected to the King Domain, so triggering it is definitely not easy. Yi Xiaokong's teleportation speed was extremely fast. Right now, he was quickly approaching the Glacier King Domain. He was within reach. He couldn't wait. Survival crystals, 15 pieces. Obtained treasures, 880 revered point. Lin Feng's gains from the Glacier Fortress were not small. Although the value of each item wasn't high, it didn't take much effort. They were all picked up. Including this top-quality material, Ice Diamond Dew, the value of these treasures is over 1,000 revered point. Lin Feng was still very satisfied. After all, he was one step late in discovering this King Domain. But his gains were much more than the 3 Black Eye Clan experts combined. Suddenly, purring, purring. His heartbeat sped up. Lin Feng stopped. He didn't feel anything. It was purely his 6th sense. There was an indescribable sense of danger. Lin Feng's expression became serious. His eyes looked into the distance, a light flashing in them. Ferocious Beast King? No. There wasn't a single vicious Beast King that could make him feel this way. Only cultivators. Moreover, he was an extremely powerful cultivator. A new expert has entered. A true expert. Lin Feng's blood vessels surged. War Saber Emperor Concealment flashed with a white light. Chapter 2480. Lin Feng's first reaction was to go to the Glacier Fortress. The King's Domain had no other value now. The only thing left was the Glacier Fortress, a top-grade treasure comparable to the 3-leaf soul grass, and the 4 ferocious Beast King. With a trump card, Lin Feng was not afraid of facing a single expert. Whoosh! Lin Feng withdrew the bone-piercing domain and concealed his aura. The advantage of the bone-piercing domain was that it could avoid any risks and sneak attacks, and it would not miss any treasures within the domain. The only weakness of the King's Domain was that it consumed heaven and earth energy, but Lin Feng did not care about that. He withdrew the domain to avoid risks as well. When the domain discovered the opponent, it would also be discovered by the opponent. It was a double-edged sword. Due to the uniqueness of the King's Domain and its great resistance, it would be very difficult to detect the aura. However, it was the same for every practitioner. Lin Feng had great confidence in his soul perception. His life rating was already that of a mid-level Divine Master. There was not much of a difference between him and a peak Divine Master. However, his soul perception and soul perception were far superior to other practitioners. They really came here. As Lin Feng approached the glacier fortress, he quickly sensed 3 auras. 2 unfamiliar and powerful auras, and 1 familiar aura. It's the Dark Eye Clan's expert who escaped that day. He's back, Lin Feng determined accurately. Those 2 powerful auras should be the helpers he invited. However, Lin Feng pressed his chest and frowned slightly. His heartbeat was not that strong. These 2 unfamiliar experts were not super experts who could make his blood boil. There's at least 1 more. Lin Feng's heart trembled. The Dark Eye Clan's expert had returned for obvious reasons. Firstly, he wanted to take revenge. Secondly, he wanted to obtain the last treasure that was more valuable than the 3-leaf soul grass. 1 more incense burner means 1 more ghost. He invited 2 helpers, which means that the combined strength of the 2 experts is enough to contend against the 4 ferocious Beast King. Lin Feng's thoughts spun quickly. If hiring 1 expert could solve the problem, there was no need to hire 2. In fact, it would be more dangerous if the Black-Eyed Clan only invited 1 expert. If 2 experts were to divide their strength, it would be a great loss. They should both have the strength of a beginner venerable. Since they're both beginner venerable, the cultivator is naturally much more powerful than the Beast King. Lin Feng currently had the combat strength of a beginner venerable. He had just fought against 2 Beast King alone and killed 2 of them. They seemed to be ready to take action. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He felt that the auras of the 2 helpers had suddenly become stronger. It seemed that they were prepared to charge into the huge glacier fortress. As expected, they had come for that precious treasure. 3 leaves soul grass, valued at 2,000 Qian revered points. The treasure of the glacier fortress was guarded by 6 Beast King and was estimated to be at least 2,500 hidden revered points. Its value was comparable to a rather decent peak Heavenly Tao Supreme treasure. Who wouldn't be tempted? They disappeared. Lin Feng felt the disappearance of the 2 auras and pursed his lips. The auras wouldn't disappear for no reason, but it was still unexpected that they disappeared so thoroughly. It was obvious that this glacier fortress was more mysterious than he had imagined. Seal it. Lock the 4 ferocious Beast Kings inside and don't let them out. The protection of a mysterious power is different from a king's domain. When the cultivators enter, their auras completely disappear. It's like a world within a world, a completely different world. There must be a reason for this abnormality. When the 2 powerful cultivators entered and their auras disappeared, Lin Feng realized that this glacier fortress was more mysterious than he had imagined. And, just a moment ago, a cultivator with an unusually strong aura entered. Did he just happen to enter by chance? Or was there some other reason? Interesting. Lin Feng felt his blood boiling. He loved the feeling of challenge the most. The exploration of the unknown and mysterious made every cell in his body feel like a sparrow, jumping with desire. Right now, even if it had nothing to do with treasures, he was still interested in exploring this glacier fortress. To touch the 4 ferocious Beast Kings. To face the 2 powerhouses who had the battle prowess of a venerable. Whoosh! Lin Feng's figure flashed. Outside the glacier fortress, Erluo stood tall. His single bloodshot eye seemed a little dim. This was the aftereffect of using up too much of his bloodline power. With his hands behind his back, he watched Du and Ikang enter. Erluo waited outside. With his current strength, he would be a burden if he entered, and Erluo wasn't interested in entering. Anyway, he only took 10% of the quota. It didn't matter if he entered or not, so why should he take the risk? The value of the treasure is about 2,500 to 3,000 revered points. At most, I'll take 300 revered points. For an expert like Erluo, 300 revered points was nothing. It was better than nothing. At least it was a solid income. What he wanted the most was for Du and Luo to help him kill that human from the hidden venerable training camp. But he didn't. This despicable and shameless human runs fast. Luo's heart was filled with resentment. When he thought of Kuan and Peng, and how more than half of the three-leaf soul grass was taken away, he was very unhappy. After that, he was forced into a desperate situation by that human and had to use his bloodline's ultimate skill to save his life. How could he take this lying down? Damn it! Luo clenched his fists unconsciously, the veins on his neck bulging. Suddenly, his heart trembled and his back turned cold. A golden light lit up in his dim eye. Luo reacted in a panic, blocking the arrival of the terrifying saber light. His soul was injured, and his strength was weakened a lot. Luo's sense of danger decreased a lot. But most importantly, the opponent's attack came too suddenly. This saber light. Almost instantly, Luo's eyes were wide open. How could he forget the saber light that covered Aurora? The concept of the heavenly Tao was deeply imprinted in his mind and bones. It was that damned human. Ah! Luo's armor was shattered, and he tried to block it. He used his peak heavenly Tao treasure, but the terrifying saber light quickly enveloped him. A full moon bloomed, and 9 saber energies descended together with Aurora. Lin Feng went all out from the beginning without holding back. They knew each other's background, and there were no secrets. Die. Facing Luo, who was at his wit's end, Lin Feng quickly killed him. He didn't waste any time on him. Now that the two experts had entered the glacier fortress, time was very precious. Thud. Lin Feng stepped over the unwilling Luo and directly passed through one of the entrances of the glacier fortress. Chapter 2481. Roar. Roar. Inside the incomparably huge glacier fortress, a fierce battle began as the brothers Du and Kong entered. The 4 barbaric and cruel beast king directly launched murderous attacks against the uninvited guests who had entered. Distortion. Du used his signature move. His 10 fingers were like knives as he attacked the beast king. At the same time, he wanted to destroy the distortion of space and control the situation. However, in an instant, a blast of space energy shot toward him, causing Du's expression to change. Among the Beast King, one of them had extremely high attainments in space. Chi. Kong's close combat ability was quite impressive. His movements were unusually agile. He and his brother Du had entered from the same side. Their heads and tails were connected, making it easier for them to cooperate. After all, the two brothers were best at cooperating. The embodiment of their strongest combat ability. According to the original plan, Du would hold back the 4 Beast King while Kong would go to get the treasure. However, among the 4 Beast King, one of them had extremely high attainments in space and did not give him a chance at all. Moreover, there was another Beast King that had terrifying attainments in time. Time disorder. Bang! Kong's face was covered in dust. He was affected by the time disorder attack, causing him to take a direct hit from one of the Beast King's claws. Fortunately, his defense was good and he was not injured. However, it was unrealistic to dodge the attacks of the 4 ferocious Beast Kings and obtain the treasure at the moment. It was a strange and beautiful emerald droplet. It was shrouded in a water-like brilliance, emitting a charming luster that made people involuntarily want to touch and possess it. Awakening Jade. It's awakening Jade. Du's eyes were shining as he shouted, left. Swoosh. Ikang reacted almost without hesitation and took the ferocious Beast King's attack head-on. With tacit understanding, there was no need to say anything more. Ikang immediately attacked the ferocious Beast King that had extremely high attainments in space and quickly attacked to restrain it. Whoosh. Du moved his fingers, and the space around him became as beautiful as flowers. The peak-level Heavenly Tao Cardinal Treasure released a dazzling light that condensed into streaks of distorted light. Without the destruction of the spatial attack, Erdu was fully focused on using spatial distortion. It was as if the entire area was under his control. Streaks of transparent white light penetrated through the ferocious Beast King in a regular pattern, enveloping them one by one. Clang! The moment Kong attacked the spatial Beast King, he wanted to break free and obtain the awakening jade. At this moment, a strange spatial fluctuation appeared in the distance, and an unfamiliar aura suddenly descended in this space. Whoosh! Whoosh! Erdu and Erkong's eyes widened. Who came in? There were two entrances to the glacier fortress. Erdu and Ikang had entered the left entrance, while Lin Feng had entered the right entrance. From the entrance, he could actually see the Beast King. Lin Feng was not so stupid as to enter the left entrance and join in. He directly entered from the right entrance. The moment Lin Feng entered, he did not hesitate to go straight for the treasure. Although he was very curious about everything in the glacier fortress, Lin Feng wanted the treasure more. He was not worried about being surrounded because Lin Feng had encountered the Beast King's simplicity before. He knew that they would prioritize attacking the same cultivator, the cultivator who attacked first. Therefore, after entering the glacier fortress, the four Beast King were not enemies but helpers. The moment he entered, it was empty. The ferocious Beast King that had been on one side had all gathered to attack from the other side. The first thing Lin Feng saw was naturally the crazy battle that caused the mountains to collapse and the earth to crack and space to distort. The powerful Qi cultivator's valiant ability to fight 1 against 3 without being at a disadvantage shocked him. In the next instant, he saw the precious treasure. The emerald water droplet floated in the beautiful waterfall-like water curtain, like a princess falling into a jade clam. It was so precious that it seemed like it would shatter with a touch. Whoosh! Lin Feng's speed was astonishing. On the other side, Ikang had also gotten rid of the Beast King and went straight for the awakening jade. Both sides were competing to see who was faster. Go to hell! Ikang's eyes were ferocious. He quickly used the Qi clan's spatial talent that they were best at. Spatial cracks appeared in front of Lin Feng, and his scaly tail whipped at Lin Feng. Attack! Ikang would not give Lin Feng any chance. Once this human obtained the awakening jade, even if he killed him in the end, the awakening jade would belong to the human. This was the rule of the survival zone. He did not wish for this to happen. Lin Feng also attacked at the same time. Aurora, full moon. With the same thought, the same valiant attack, mixed with the time-stopping heavenly way, Lin Feng's explosive power was not inferior to Ikang's at all. When it came to fighting with the bayonet, Lin Feng could unleash Lin Feng's valiant combat power. Boom! Boom! The attack was extremely shocking. Both Ikang and Lin Feng were full of killing intent. Under such circumstances, neither of them could take half a step back. Their combat power was almost the same. As soon as they exchanged blows, they knew it clearly. Damn you, Erluo, how dare you lie to us? Ikang had already cursed countless times in his heart. The human in front of him was the human youth from the hidden supremacy training camp that Erluo had downplayed. What a joke! The strength of a supremacy was definitely among the top 100 cultivators in the hidden supremacy training camp. Weakling? He, Erluo, was the F*King weakling. Ah! Ikang's green face was extremely ferocious. The peak Heavenly Way supreme treasure weapon disintegrated, forming countless sharp claws. Combined with the space Heavenly Way, it attacked Lin Feng. When it came into contact with the blade light, the sound of metal clashing continued, and the entire glacier fortress shook continuously. Lin Feng's War Saber Emperor concealment had 5 layers of engravings, and the bone-piercing domain was completely released. The power of chaos bloomed, and Aurora's heavenly way filled the air. Light and darkness intertwined. Lin Feng's attack was like a huge wave that covered everything. Although the awakening jade was close at hand, neither Lin Feng nor Ikang could get close. Whoever wanted to obtain the awakening jade would have to pay the price of death. It was anxious, but it was not without a solution. I still have help. The corners of Lin Feng's mouth curled up slightly. At that moment, behind Akang, the giant beast king that he had just abandoned had already opened its bloody mouth. A huge spatial impact bomb rumbled over and crushed Akang. Damned beast! Akang was furious. He immediately blocked it with his hand. The opportunity was right in front of Lin Feng's eyes. But, you want to play this trick? Lin Feng sneered and did not take half a step forward. The War Saber Emperor concealment let out a high-pitched sound. The 5 layers of engravings merged perfectly with the concept of Aurora, and its combat power condensed and exploded. Boom! Lin Feng cooperated with the giant beast king and attacked its back. The killing intent in his eyes was not concealed at all. No. Ikang's eyes widened in shock. Lin Feng's attack was completely out of his expectations. He had originally wanted to use the attack of the giant beast king to take the awakening jade at the risk of injury. However, he did not expect that Lin Feng would not fall for it at all. He saw the awakening jade but did not take it. Instead, he attacked him. Goddamn human! Chapter 2482. Erdu knew about Lin Feng's appearance the moment he appeared. However, with 3 ferocious beast king in tow, even with Erdu's superior strength, it was difficult for him to intervene. Moreover, he had great confidence in Erkong's strength. How strong could an unknown human be? But he was wrong. This human youth, who was not worth mentioning in Erluo's words, was so terrifyingly strong that he could actually fight Erkong as an equal. Erdu had no choice but to intervene. Because if he did not intervene, the Enlightenment Jade would fall into the hands of the human. Bang! 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 The space exploded rapidly. Erdu's face was ashen. The instant attack consumed a lot of his energy, but shaking off the 3 ferocious beast king gave him precious time. Swoosh! The moment he sped forward, Erdu had already launched his attack. The distorted space was like a giant beast opening its bloody mouth to swallow Lin Feng. Boom! Lin Feng frowned. He had no choice but to withdraw his attack on Erkong. Because the moment he attacked Erkong, he would also be injured by the powerful space energy. Lin Feng knew that he was no match for the 2 of them alone. However, he did not expect to be able to kill 2 opponents who were not weaker than him. Take the treasure. Lin Feng changed his moves extremely quickly. The moment he locked onto Erkong, he grabbed at the droplet of droplet. Erkong's eyes almost popped out of their socket. In the distance, Erdu had already appeared. He was experienced and prepared. The space was sealed, and a peak-level heavenly path treasure appeared. It was completely silver and exuded an aggressive aura as it protected the Enlightenment Jade. Chi! 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 Like a flamethrower, the space energy gathered into a beam and attacked Lin Feng. But in an instant, rays of light fell. Lin Feng forcefully broke it open. After all, it was only a heavenly path treasure. It could not unleash its full power without control. Erdu did not expect to be able to stop Lin Feng with this. All he wanted to do was stall for time. Because Erkong was still there. Boom! With sharp spikes on his back, Ikang, who had gotten rid of the Beast King in one fell swoop, rushed toward Lin Feng like a fierce tiger coming down from the mountain. The space engravings emitted a dazzling light. Each of his hands had 10 fingers that were bent like sharp knives. The tyrannical attacking ability of the Chiya clan was undoubtedly displayed. This time, Ikang's target was no longer the Qi Ming Jade, but Lin Feng. He clearly knew that if he didn't get rid of this cunning human in front of him, he wouldn't be able to get the Enlightenment Jade. Besides, he had his big brother Edu behind him. What was there to be afraid of? There's no other way. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly as he made a decision. He ignored Ikang and went straight for the central Qishan Jade. Quick! In the surroundings, rays of twilight light flashed. With twilight thorn ingot as the center, dense patterns of light condensed and covered the entire area. The space energy frantically strangled the surroundings, and the image of the ingot was bright and clear. The third form, Twilight Assassination Domain. Lin Feng, who had been forced to the extreme, used the domain to a higher level. His will was extremely firm. The strongest form of the Twilight Assassination Domain was extremely close to perfection. It had both offensive and defensive capabilities. In his hand there was another top-grade Heavenly Path Absolute Treasure that emitted a black light. It was a dark-type top-grade Heavenly Path Absolute Treasure, Demonic Light Thorn. Lin Feng's only top-grade offensive Heavenly Path Absolute Treasure. Don't even think about touching the Qi Ming Jade. Edu controlled the entire situation. He didn't care about the crazy attacks of the three-headed Beast King behind him. Once again, he attacked Lin Feng with space distortion, not giving Lin Feng any chance to touch the Qi Ming Jade. The two brothers had a tacit understanding. Ikang naturally wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity. The Qi Ming Jade was his. But Ikang touched the awakening jade, and the bright light of the jade was immediately released. The corners of Ikang's mouth curled into a smile, but the treasure was already in his hand. However, at this moment, a black ray of light silently penetrated the space binding, and with a swoosh it pierced his ribs. What? Ikang's expression suddenly changed. It was as if he had been stabbed by thousands of needles. Blood flowed wildly. The pain was unbearable. Demonic Light Thorn, double penetration. The strength of the Demonic Light Thorn was not because of its terrifying attack power, but because of its multiple penetrations. The extremely sharp attack and the hidden attack pierced through Ikang's space distortion constraint. There was even one that directly injured Ikang. Poof! Ikang's strength was greatly reduced. The dark power in his body was frantically devouring him. At this moment, the three-headed Beast King behind Ikang pounced forward. The original space distortion was torn apart by the endless sword light. What appeared in front of Ikang was a full moon. It was an extremely beautiful full moon. Lin Feng's sword was directly aimed at Ikang. It emitted an extremely bright light. The perfect aurora, which was extremely close to the exquisite heavenly path, enveloped Ikang and the Qi Ming Jade. It also enveloped the dazzling water curtain world. It was as if it was destroying all beauty. No! Ikang's expression changed drastically. His eyes were filled with endless panic. Oh no! Ikang completely understood now. His heart was cold as he gritted his teeth. What a cunning human! It was difficult to distinguish between what was real and what was fake. He thought that his target was the Qi Ming Jade. He did not expect it to be his brother Ikang. He took advantage of the moment when Ikang snatched the treasure to injure him. He also calculated the time accurately. When Ikang was surrounded by the three-headed Beast King, he launched his strongest attack and took Ikang's life. When did such a strong human appear in the hidden honorable training camp? Ikang fought against the three-headed Beast King. He was shocked. He knew clearly that his brother Ikang would definitely die. But at least they had obtained the Qi Ming Jade. And his brother Ikang still had the Death Immortal Puppet. However, the Qi Ming Jade shattered. Under the powerful attack, the water curtain was shattered. A shocking spatial energy swept through the entire area. Even the Qi Ming Jade in the water curtain shattered, emitting a dazzling and beautiful green light. Whoosh whoosh, like dominoes, the spatial energy connected and opened a path between the north and south poles. It formed a resonating sound and caused the entire glacier fortress to shake. A mysterious power suddenly descended. Oh! Lin Feng was shocked. His eyes shone. It was this mysterious power. War Saber Di Yin's attack had torn apart the glacier fortress's camouflage. His attack, which he had been confident in, had not killed the Qi Ming warrior. It had only seriously injured him because part of the energy had been absorbed by the treasure and the water curtain. It seemed like he had unintentionally triggered some kind of mechanism? No, it's not an opportunity. It's a condition in the top-level artificial intelligence's message. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. His heartbeat quickened. He had already given up on this treasure. Even if he obtained it, he would be attacked by the 2 Qi Ming warriors. It was better to use it as bait and kill one of the Qi Ming warriors. Then, he would cooperate with the Beast King to kill the other Qi Ming warrior. Everything had been perfect, but he had not expected such an unforeseen event. His attack had unintentionally triggered the Glacier Fortress's condition. Was it a blessing or a curse? If it's really the condition, then we've profited greatly. Lin Feng's eyes were completely bright. The lives of 2 Qi Ming warriors in exchange for an unactivated Emperor's domain? He had profited more than 100 times.